The world once belonged to a game called Deus Ex Machina, Ragnarok or Demrock for short. It was an instant global hit, winning Game of the Year and setting new records for the VR market. At its peak, over 100 million people were logged in simultaneously, fighting for glory in a world of monsters and magic. But even the biggest legends eventually fade. Over the years, the numbers started to drop as people moved on to newer things. Now, the service is finally coming to an end. A few old-timers have gathered around a campfire for one last goodbye. A system message pops up, announcing that the server will shut down for good in just 30 minutes. Kaiser, the top-ranked player in all of Demrock, stares into the night. Even as the number one, he looks pretty calm about the whole thing. The fifth-ranked player, a massive guy named Purpletaste, grumbles about the game being a piece of junk anyway. He says he wanted it to fail, but seeing it actually happen feels different. Sword Emperor, the rank 4 player with a long ponytail, sighs. He enjoyed it, but he can't figure out why such a great game is dying. Keikaku Chicken, a woman in a gold mask, chimes in from the side. She's not exactly helping the mood. She mutters about Purpletaste's mask and his annoying way of talking. Purpletaste snaps back, ready to throw hands right then and there. Sword Emperor tells them to knock it off, while Kaiser just watches them bicker one last time. Purpletaste looks over at the group's silent leader. Kaiser admits that seeing it all end is a little disappointing. Purpletaste laughs. Out of everyone, Kaiser was the one who studied the game's mechanics like his life depended on it. He mentions how watching Kaiser fight was like seeing a god at work. Pure skill, zero luck. Kaiser's combat moves were legendary, pulling off things that should have been impossible. Keikaku Chicken points out that the gods are fair, though, because Kaiser has the absolute worst luck of anyone she's ever seen. Purpletaste agrees. It's insane that a guy without a single legendary skill managed to hit rank 1. If he actually had good luck, the rest of them wouldn't even be in his league. The girl remembered the times Kaiser failed 10 enhancements in a row, screaming that the whole world was conspiring against him. The giant guy cracks up, calling Kaiser the most unlucky bastard of the bunch. The whole group shares a laugh around the fire. It's a rare moment of peace before the end. Sword Emperor smiles, admitting Kaiser's luck really was bottom tier. The final warning bell rings. The service is terminating exactly as scheduled. A message flashes across their screens, thanking them for being part of the journey until the very last second. Purpletaste's avatar begins to dissolve into blue light. He tells everyone they worked hard and says his goodbye. Keikaku Chicken and Sword Emperor fade out next, hopping to see each other in some other god-tier game in the future. Kaiser stands alone in the quiet forest. It really is over now. The campfire crackles one last time before his own form starts to break apart. In a flash of light, the number 1 player vanishes from the world of Demrock. Service termination complete. The legendary era has officially closed. Back in the real world, a sleek VR headset sits silent on a desk. The lights on it go dark. 2 years pass by. The city continues to grow, and new trends have taken over the gaming market. A green bus rolls down a busy street, filled with people heading home. Inside, 2 high schoolers are glued to a phone screen, watching a video of some high-level gameplay. One of them can't believe the control he's seeing. The video shows a player taking down a massive demon lord single-handedly. It's the kind of stuff only the elite can pull off. They talk about a ranker named Annihilation from the Execution Guild, saying he's definitely the best out there right now. The other kid is a huge fan of the Empress, loving her solo playstyle. He calls her a proud wolf of the gaming world. They wonder if any player could actually beat those two. One of them ponders for a second. Wait, isn't there one guy? He brings up Kaiser, the rank 1 player from the old Demrock days. But ever since that game ended, the guy just disappeared. They both wonder what happened to him and what he could be doing now. It's like he just vanished off the face of the earth. Sitting just a few seats away is a guy in a military uniform, tilting his cap and smiling. 2 years after the end of Demrock, Kang Do-yeon is finally back. A new legend has emerged to take Demrock's place, a game called God of Savior. Everyone just calls it GOTS, and its user base is already massive. It promises infinite freedom, with a huge variety of races and classes to choose from. But a familiar face is about to enter the fray. Kang Do-yeon, the man who used to be rank 1 back in Demrock, has finally finished his military service. He heads straight back home after his discharge. Do-yeon bursts through the door, immediately asking where his gaming capsule is. His sister is shocked to see him back so soon. She can't believe he's already looking to game the second he steps inside. His mom yells from the other room, complaining that kids these days only care about their parents when they're bobbies. Do-yeon doesn't care about the nagging. He's got his eyes on the prize. There it is. A VR capsule, just like the ones he's been seeing on TV for the last 18 months. He hugs the machine, savoring the moment. This is what all those months of hard-earned military pay were for. He runs his hand along the sleek curves, admiring the build quality. The capsule door slides open, inviting him in. Even though it's second-hand, the interior is surprisingly comfortable. He settles into the seat and pulls down the headset, ready to jump back into the virtual world. The system begins scanning his retina to initialize the login. It verifies his ID card and starts the synchronization process. Sync complete. He's officially entered the world of GOTS. A bright light flashes as the game welcomes him to the paradise of adventure. He finds himself in a grand hall, prompted to create his new character. He takes a look at his default form. It's pretty basic, but it'll do for now. He rubs his short hair, thinking he still looks a bit too much like a soldier. The menu offers a ton of customization options, but he's too eager to play. He just picks a standard look and moves on. Next up is the nickname. He doesn't even have to think twice about it. A smirk plays on his lips as he types in his old name, Kaiser. Character creation is a success. The system welcomes Kaiser back to the world of rankers. He's assigned a hashtag and immediately warped to the tutorial zone. He lands in the middle of a burning fortress. The system calls it the tragic battlefield of Arlen Castle. He's impressed by how real everything feels. This is definitely a step up from Demrock. A weapon selection screen pops up, asking him to pick his starting gear. The options are all pretty basic. Daggers, whips, and standard blades. Nothing fancy for a beginner. He reaches for a simple sword, deciding to stick with what he knows best. He's been a swordsman since the very beginning, so why change a winning formula? A loud shout echoes through the courtyard. Kaiser looks over to see someone running his way. A knight in shining armor rushes toward him, looking desperate. It's Charlie, the knight captain. He demands to know what a mercenary is doing standing around while the castle is under attack. Before Kaiser can even answer, Charlie grabs his arm and starts pulling him along. A system message pops up, informing him that he's now in a party with the captain. Charlie yells that the other mercenaries are already fighting. They sprint through the flaming corridors of the castle, heading straight for the front lines. Kaiser skids to a halt as they reach the battlefield. The situation is even worse than it looked. Bodies are everywhere. The castle guards are being slaughtered by a pack of vicious beastmen. Charlie grits his teeth, realizing the enemy has joined forces with the monsters. He suspects they've made a pact with something truly terrifying. Charlie screams at Kaiser to move. If they don't stop the invaders now, that thing will descend upon them all. He points the way, urging them to hurry through the side passage to save time. Kaiser doesn't hesitate, following the captain through the heavy doors. Suddenly, an arrow cuts through the air with a deadly whistle. A volley of arrows thuds into the stone floor. They've been spotted. Snarling beastmen emerge from the gloom, their eyes glowing with bloodlust. Charlie curses. The monsters have already swarmed this far into the castle. He prepares to fight his way through. But suddenly, a blur cut him off. It was Kaiser. Without waiting for the NPC to finish his long-winded speech, Kaiser's hands and feet were already itching for a fight, and he charged straight into the heat of the action. A massive beastman roars, leaping from the shadows with a heavy axe. The creature swings with enough force to shatter stone, aiming straight for Kaiser. But Kaiser's eyes have already sharpened. His world slows down as he enters a state of total focus. Charlie shouts a desperate warning, thinking the young mercenary is done for. With a slight tilt of his body, Kaiser dodges the heavy strike by a hair's breadth. The axe smashes into the ground, sending dust and debris flying, but Kaiser is already moving. The beastman freezes in shock, its prey having vanished from its line of sight. Kaiser's hand finds his hilt. It's time to show them why he was a legend. In a flash of blue light, he draws his sword and carves through the monster in one fluid motion. He doesn't stop. He's a blur of steel and speed, his glowing eyes tracking every enemy movement. He tears through the pack of beastmen like a whirlwind, leaving only splatters of blood in his wake. The remaining monsters are paralyzed by fear, unable to process the speed of this human. Another beastman tries to overwhelm him with a desperate overhead strike. Kaiser easily dodged the downward strike with a simple sidestep. Kaiser didn't give his opponent a chance to recover. Using the momentum from his spin, he delivered a devastating, high-powered knee strike. A high kick to the face sends the monster crashing backward, its jaw shattered. The beastman collapses, its glowing eyes fatting as it struggles to understand its defeat. The rest of the squad is horrified. They realize too late they've picked a fight with a monster in human skin. They try to scramble away, their snarls turning into whimpers of terror. Kaiser ends it with one final spinning strike, a perfect circle of light that cuts down every remaining foe. He lands softly, the battle over in just a matter of seconds. He looks back at the bodies littering the corridor. It was almost too easy. He flicks the blood from his blade. He'd been worried about being rusty, but he's satisfied with the result. He admits he was concerned since it had been a while, but it feels surprisingly natural. In fact, his body feels even lighter, and more responsive than it did in Demrock. Charlie is completely awestruck. He's never seen an unknown mercenary handle 5 monsters with such ease. A system message pings. Charlie is deeply impressed, and his favorability toward Kaiser is skyrocketing. Kaiser wonders to himself if the standards for heroism in this world are just a little too low. Charlie can only think that this man might be a literal hero, stepped out of a legend. The system notifications keep coming. Charlie's favorability has reached the absolute maximum. Charlie now trusts him implicitly. He would believe Kaiser's word over anyone else's. A special title pops up, Affection Max from the start. Kaiser's achieved something rare. It's a rare grade title for maxing out an NPC's affection during the tutorial. It even gives him a nice stat boost. Kaiser smiles. This little bonus will definitely come in handy later. Charlie laughs heartily, thanking Kaiser for making his job 1,000 times easier. Charlie points ahead, stating that if they can just eliminate the Dark Sorcerer inside, they'll secure a total victory for Arlen Castle. Purple energy begins to crackle violently through the air. Charlie looks up in horror, realizing the summoning ritual has already begun. Grotesque monsters begin to crawl out from the dark rifts, their red eyes filled with murderous intent. High-pitched screeches echo through the hall. Charlie draws his sword, shouting that he'll hold back the monsters here. He tells Kaiser to go on ahead and stop the summoner. Charlie looks at Kaiser with complete trust, a golden aura surrounding him. He believes Kaiser is the only one who can finish this. He offers a final blessing, his voice booming with the authority of a captain as he sends Kaiser toward the final confrontation. Charlie charges into the fray with a roar, his armor glowing as he takes on the horde alone to clear a path. Kaiser is momentarily stunned. This isn't how things were supposed to go. He remembers the tutorial very differently. He pulls up a mental image of a walkthrough video he saw. In the normal tutorial, Charlie was always the one to enter the final room first. The guide said the tutorial could change based on user actions, but Kaiser hadn't expected it to diverge this much from his very first play. He steps toward the large, ornate doors. Purple lightning arcs across the frame, sealing it shut behind him. Kaiser stands alone before the massive portal, his sword drawn. The air is thick with dark magic, vibrating with an ominous hum. System windows begin to appear, flickering into existence. They warn him that only one person can enter, and the consequences of failure are dire. The game asks if he would like to enter. Kaiser is shocked. System messages like this aren't supposed to appear in the standard tutorial. His eyes widen in realization. This isn't just a deviation, this is a hidden piece, a secret event triggered by his exceptional performance. He recalls that hidden pieces are mechanics deliberately tucked away by developers, only activated under extremely specific conditions. The rewards for completing a hidden piece are legendary. They can give a player a massive advantage from the very beginning. Kaiser smirks. There's no reason to turn down an opportunity this valuable, no matter how dangerous it might be. He selects yes. Light envelops him as he enters the room. Inside, he finds a dark sorcerer screaming in agony, his own summon having turned against him. The sorcerer is being torn apart by a shadowy, demonic silhouette. His desperate cries fill the chamber as his life is extinguished. The silhouette begins to take a solid, terrifying shape. Kaiser watches closely, his grip on his sword tightening. Massive scales and wings unfurl as the creature roars, a sound that vibrates in Kaiser's very chest. This is far beyond a normal tutorial boss. A massive, red-eyed head emerges from the shadows. The sheer pressure of its presence would crush a normal new player. The creature is finally revealed, the restrained, iron-blooded demonic dragon. Kaiser stares up at the Titan, ready for the real game to begin. God of Savior took a lot of inspiration from the old legendary game, Demrock, specifically the tier system, ranking everything from normal all the way up to legendary status. It's a rigid hierarchy that defines the power levels of this entire world. Naturally, that system applies to monsters too, but the ones at the very top are in a league of their own. They call them named bosses, monsters so rare and powerful that they carry unique titles. Like this massive beast, the bound, iron-blooded demonic dragon. The beast lets out a deafening, bone-chilling roar. It's pure intimidation, shaking the foundations of the entire room. The dragon screams directly into Kaiser's face, trying to break his spirit. Systems alert him immediately. He's been hit by the overwhelming pressure of a legendary presence. His stats take a massive nosedive, with his speed, attack, and defense all plummeting. Kaiser clenches his teeth, annoyed that the developers would pull something this dirty right in the tutorial. He notices the heavy chains holding the dragon back, sealing away most of its true power. But even sealed, he knows a single hit from that massive front paw would be instant death. Still, he's been in plenty of tight spots like this during his time as a top ranker in Demrock. He remembers those impossible fights where death was always just one tiny mistake away. For someone with his skills, there was only ever one real choice: win or die trying. His eyes flare with a cold, absolute focus. The dragon lunges forward, swiping its jagged claws through the air. Kaiser pivots, his boots barely scraping the floor as he narrowly avoids the strike. He counters instantly, his blade sending sparks flying as it grinds against the dragon's scales. The beast snaps its jaws at him, but he's already shifted his weight for the next move. He delivers a precise slash, desperately searching for a weak point in its armor. He keeps his distance, his eyes tracking every twitch of the monster's muscles. Another massive clash fills the room with light as he barely parries a blow. He leaps into the air, putting every ounce of strength into a heavy downward swing. He doesn't blink, fully immersed in the rhythm of the life-and-death struggle. After 2 perfect strikes, he realizes he's only dealt 120 damage to a health pool of nearly 1,000,000. Kaiser smirks through the sweat. This difficulty is exactly as insane as the community said it would be. On the forums, players are already calling it a boss that wasn't meant to be beaten by human players. Some find the dragon too creepy to even look at, let alone fight. They're debating if it's even possible to win, since even the top rankers have failed here. Most assume the boss taking damage is just a bit of realism, but Kaiser isn't stopping. Suddenly, the boss's title changes to demonic dragon species of sloth, and the chat goes wild. People are screaming about bugs and glitches, unable to believe someone is actually winning. They're losing their minds trying to figure out who this level 1 player could possibly be. A blinding pillar of blue energy strikes down, piercing the dragon's very core. The monster shrieks in genuine, agonizing pain for the first time in the fight. A final massive shockwave tears through the beast's body, ending its reign. System alerts confirm the impossible victory. The legendary named boss has been defeated. Kaiser is officially the first person to ever slay a legendary boss in the tutorial. He leans on his sword, panting and covered in blood, barely able to believe he actually pulled it off. Kaiser looks at the spot where the dragon stood, calling it a stubborn bastard. He notes that it's the first time he's managed something like this. It hits him that if he struggled this much, the other top rankers probably couldn't beat it either. On the community boards, players are raging at the developers for making an impossible boss. Kaiser just smirks, wondering how those old rivals of his are doing. A notification pops up. He's earned the title First Slayer and a bunch of new traits. The traits start stacking up: Weapon Master, Hidden Dragon, Slayer, and Hero. He even unlocks the Overcome trait after meeting some extreme conditions. Then comes the big one, a unique trait called Eye of Truth. Kaiser can't believe his luck. Usually, players are lucky to walk away from the tutorial with just a single trait. Traits are a core part of the system in God of Savior, giving players specialized boosts. They range from exploration-focused guides to combat-oriented sword masters. The better your achievements, the higher the tier of the trait you're granted. He scrolls through abilities like location tracking and status effect immunity. He pauses on the most interesting one. The Eye of Truth is a unique tier trait that lets him see through hidden things. The other traits he got are great, but they aren't unique. Other players might have one of those, but none of them will have all of them at once. The Eye of Truth is different. It's literally the only one of its kind in the entire game world. Between the unique trait and the 5 others, Kaiser feels like he just hit the jackpot. The legendary First Slayer title is even more broken, giving massive damage buffs against bosses. Kaiser is practically glowing. He's never had luck like this before. For a guy who used to have the worst luck in the world, this feels incredibly sweet. But then, he notices someone else is still in the room. Charlie, the Knight Commander, is still standing, leaning heavily on his sword. The knight is battered and breathing hard, clearly in shock. Kaiser walks over, his own boots clicking against the bloody floor. Kaiser wonders what's on the knight's mind. Charlie asks if Kaiser truly slew the beast that let out such a terrifying roar. He's stunned that Kaiser doesn't have a single scratch on him, and demands to know who he is. Kaiser tries to explain, but Charlie cuts him off, saying it doesn't matter where he came from. The knight declares that a hero is born in times of chaos, looking at Kaiser with pure awe. Kaiser just stares back, not quite sure how to handle all the sudden drama. Charlie believes Kaiser will be the ray of light that brings about a great change in the world. The knight drops to one knee, offering his service to the hero before him. A system window pops up. Charlie wishes to pledge his eternal loyalty. If Kaiser accepts, Charlie will become his official subordinate, and he'll get all the benefits. Kaiser is floored. That's a massive upgrade for a tutorial reward. But there's a catch. Charlie is technically a deceased figure from the past, so there are no active benefits. Kaiser remembers that the tutorial is just a recreation of historical events. He tells Charlie to do as he wishes, figuring it's just a formality anyway. He accepts the oath, and Charlie's loyalty is officially recorded in the game's memories. The war known as the Tragedy of Arlen Castle has been rewritten into a victory in Charlie's memories. The system notes that he can now fall asleep in peace, looking forward to a future by Kaiser's side. Kaiser repeats the phrase quietly to himself, watching as the light begins to surround them. A notification informs Kaiser that he will be warped to the Pantheon shortly. The teleportation circle glows with an intense blue energy, pulling Kaiser away from the tutorial zone. Charlie looks up at him one last time, addressing him as his liege. The knight asks where their next destination will be, ready to follow his commander anywhere. Kaiser pauses for a second, considering the question as the world fades around him. "We go where we are needed," Kaiser replies with a small, confident smile. "Because it's a chaotic world," he adds, his voice echoing in the rising light. Charlie is visibly moved by Kaiser's answer, a look of profound relief on his face. The warp count hits 5 seconds, as the tutorial room begins to dissolve completely. Charlie quickly reaches out, handing Kaiser a necklace with a glowing pink gem. "My liege, please accept this." Kaiser takes the gift, surprised by the sudden item drop. The countdown hits 2 seconds. Charlie offers a final, grateful smile as he disappears. "Thank you, my liege, please," brings salvation. The transfer is complete, and Kaiser is pulled through the void. He finds himself in a grand, celestial hall. "Welcome to the Pantheon," the system announces. "This is the place where you choose a god and decide your path forward." Standing before a massive, glowing pillar of information, Kaiser prepares to take the next step in his journey as the god's blessings wait for him. Kang Do-yun finally reaches the Pantheon, a place most players just call the gacha room. It's basically the heart of the game, where your entire future is decided by a single pull. This one room has made more people laugh and cry than anything else in the game. The rules are simple. You serve one god, and that god determines your character class. The gods are split into 3 tiers: Fable, Hero, and Myth. Fable gods are basically legends born from stories passed down through history. Hero gods are former humans who reached divinity through their own deeds. Then you have the big guys, myth gods like Zeus and Odin, who created entire mythologies. Naturally, they're in a league of their own. The sheer number of cards is overwhelming, but Do-yun doesn't expect much given his usual garbage luck. He's about to pick a random card when something catches his eye. A single card is glowing gold. He activates his new skill, Eye of Truth, to see what's actually under the surface. He's stunned. The skill lets him see every hidden secret. If this is for real, he can basically guarantee a top-tier pull every time he tries. He flashes back to his old friends, constantly mocking him for his pathetic luck. He always laughed along, but it actually left a pretty bitter taste in his mouth. But this could be his ticket back to the top of the rankings. He takes a deep breath and tells himself to stay cool. He's going straight for the gold cards and nothing else. He reaches out and grabs it. It's vibrating with pure power. He pulled Tyr, the one-armed sword god, a myth-tier deity. Do-yun can't believe it, a myth god on his first try, but the system rejects him immediately. Apparently his vessel hasn't even been formed. He's frozen in shock. The game is literally telling him no. He's confused. He can't be an apostle. What the hell does that mean? Even Tyr looks completely lost. This situation shouldn't even be possible. He's never heard of anyone running into a vessel problem before. Then he realizes something. Normally, players die to the boss to get a goddess's revelation. But since he killed the damn thing, the goddess never showed up. He skipped the revelation entirely. He pulls up his status screen, but everything looks normal for a level 1. But there's a problem. His class is just adventurer, not an apostle. The special apostle stats he should have are just missing. The system is basically telling him he's stuck as a basic nobody. He's starting to panic. If he can't get a class, he's basically dead weight. Picking more cards is pointless if he doesn't have a vessel to hold the power. He drops to his knees, wondering if he just ruined his entire run before it even started. Deleting his character would mean a 60-day lockout. He doesn't have that kind of time. Wait, he spots something else. Something buried under all the other cards. It's a red card. He's never even heard of a red tier existing in this game. He touches it anyway. He's got nothing left to lose at this point. The system lights up. He's just selected a hidden card and become the Apostle of Cassiar, the forgotten last adventurer. Since he already had an adventurer's vessel, it actually worked. The system finally processes everything. He's officially advanced to the last adventurer class and starts acquiring his new skill. The class description reveals that humanity was once a mighty race of masters in this world, but they crumbled away until only this final lineage remained. A surge of intense red energy erupts around Do-yun as the power of the last adventurer settles into his body. His unique ability is insane. It allows him to use skills from any class without any of the usual restrictions. He realizes he isn't locked into a single path anymore. He can literally use every single skill in the game. With this, he can handpick the most powerful skills and build a custom skill tree that no one else can match. Combining the Eye of Truth to find the best skills with his new freedom to use them all is a terrifying combo. He's well on his way to becoming a true all-master, with absolutely zero weaknesses to exploit. With his class advancement complete, the system starts the countdown to transport him to the main world. He smiles, thinking about how this journey is definitely going to be worth the effort this time. As the timer hits 0, he focuses on one goal: reclaiming his title as a top ranker. He arrives under a bright, clear sky in a massive, sprawling city. This is Ard, the city of beginnings, and the place is absolutely bustling with other players. Nearby, a player is having a total meltdown over a bad gacha pull, while his friend tries to tell him there's more to the game than just combat. Do-yeon takes in the sights, looking like just another face in the crowd. A couple of guild scouters are scanning the area, but they're clearly disappointed by the lack of talent. They're supposed to be prestigious recruiters, but most players treat them like annoying telemarketers. One of them complains about his monthly quota, worried that his manager is going to breathe down his neck again. They stop and take a look at Do-yeon as he walks past. They take one look at his plain gear and assume he's just a broken train wreck of a player. They decide there's no point in wasting their time on him and just walk away with a sigh. Do-yeon ignores them and checks out the hero-tier necklace Charlie gave him. It grows stronger every time he earns EXP. The item is absolutely cracked. Even the basic passive options are better than most endgame gear. He's practically drowning in how sweet his luck has finally become. Suddenly, a regional quest pops up for everyone in the area: a simple goblin cleanup. It's a standard hunt: kill 40 goblins for a decent chunk of silver and experience. The nearby players are stoked that they don't even have to wait in line for a quest. Hunter Dante rallies the crowd, telling them he's leaving the goblin massacre in their hands. The city square turns into a chaotic mess of people, shouting for party members to help with the grind. Do-yeon watches the madness, realizing that pretty much everyone is teaming up. A guy named Shieldibeast approaches him and asks if he wants to join a group aiming for level 12. The rest of the group is eager for the party bonus, and they figured one more sword wouldn't hurt. He thinks about it for a second and decides they're right. It's the most efficient way to start. Party hunting is basically mandatory in these early levels if you want to keep up with the bonus EXP. He accepts the invite, figuring it's a good way to blend in. The party is officially formed with Shieldibeast as the leader and Do-yeon taking his old name, Kaiser. Shieldibeast sees the name and asks if he's some kind of Kaiser superfan. The archer explains that Kaiser was the legendary #1 player from the old Demrock days. Do-yeon just scratches his head and acts like he's never even heard the name before. The group gets pumped up, ready to blast through the goblin fields and reach level 12. He gives them a quick cheer as they head out. The fight kicks off immediately, with Shieldibeast slamming into a goblin and stunning it right out of the gate. Shieldibeast lets out a roar as he lands a perfect shield bash, creating an opening for the rest of the party. The archer and mage immediately follow up, raining arrows and magic bolts onto their target. Their coordination pays off as the system notifies them that they've successfully defeated a green goblin. However, more high-pitched screeches erupt from the shadows. This hunt is far from over. A group of goblins comes rushing in from all directions, smelling blood and looking for a fight. Shieldibeast plants his feet and braces his shield, desperately trying to hold the line against the sudden onslaught. His teammates cry out in fear as they realize they're about to be completely overwhelmed. He struggles to keep the grinning monsters at bay, shouting for his allies to take them down quickly. Panic sets in when he realizes his essential defensive skills are still on cooldown, leaving him wide open. Seizing the opportunity, one of the goblins launches itself high into the air to strike from a blind spot. Shieldibeast looks up in sheer terror, realizing he's helpless against the incoming blow from above. A green goblin screeches, baring its teeth at the intruders. A sharp blue slash tears through the grass before the monster can even move. Kaiser carves right through his target, while Shieldibeast holds the line with his heavy shield. Shieldibeast can barely believe how easily the guy is handling this. Yubingkung and Aimforth are just as stunned by the display, but Kaiser doesn't slow down, already dashing toward the next group. He slams into the ground, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. 2 more goblins go down instantly under his red-tinted blade. The team is ecstatic, shouting Kaiser's name as he cleans house. The fighter calmly sheathes his weapon, looking like he's barely getting started. Shieldibeast walks up, genuinely impressed by the rookie's skill. He's already convinced they're going to breeze through this dungeon. Then he spots something in the shadows and yells out a warning. A whole pack of green goblins starts swarming out from the trees. It's a massive horde, and they look a lot hungrier than the first group. Shieldibeast panics, telling everyone they need to run for it immediately. Instead of retreating, Kaiser charges straight into the heart of the mob. The monsters lunge at him from every direction. He leaps high, aiming to drop right into the middle of their ranks. A memory flashes of his past, eyes glowing red as he gripped a massive sword. Back then, even the forest itself seemed to tremble at the scale of his power. A massive shockwave blasts through the clearing. In the flashback, Kei Kakudakaku asks why he always picks fights in such reckless situations. Kaiser just looks back, wondering why the guy thinks he's being reckless. Kei Kakudakaku points out that jumping in headfirst with low HP is basically asking for a death wish. The hero points at the giant monster corpse behind him. He won, didn't he? The big man admits that's true, but warns him that it's still incredibly dangerous. Returning to the present, Kaiser looks at the swarm and admits it might look that way to others. He thinks to himself that there's no reason to take unnecessary risks just to fight. He moves in, a blur of motion before the team can even blink. To him, he's never actually fought recklessly. He dives through the air, perfectly tracking every enemy movement. His old self echoes that he only fights because he's already certain he'll win. The woods go silent for a split second as he makes his move. A notification pops up as he triggers his smash skill. His blade slashed straight through the goblin's chest, nearly tearing its body to pieces. The system confirms the kill and awards him a new pelt. He scans the field, identifying only one poison dart goblin left in the back. He kicks off the ground, moving faster than the monsters can react. His strategy is simple. When dealing with numbers, always take out the ranged units first. He carves through the remaining guards midair, leaving the fat goblin with the blowpipe wide open and completely defenseless. Kaiser is a total whirlwind of steel, carving through the goblins with terrifying precision. In the heat of the battle, his overcome trait activates, letting him push past his physical limits. With his eyes glowing, he readies himself for the next devastating blow. A goblin screeches in pure terror as it watches its buddies get wiped out. But it's too late to run. Kaiser is already past it, his blade leaving a glowing trail in the air. He's moving so fast his feet are barely touching the grass. He stands his ground against the horde, completely unfazed by the numbers. The monsters try to overwhelm him, but he parries every single attack like he's bored. His focus is absolute as he locks onto his next target. He swaps weapons in a heartbeat, driving a dagger straight into a goblin's skull. The combination of his weapon master trait and adventurer class is basically a cheat code, allowing him to use any weapon skill. Even Kaiser is surprised at just how broken this combo really is. He snatched up the goblin's weapon that had just been sent flying. He triggers Exploit Weakness, landing a brutal critical hit that drops the monster instantly. The clearing is quickly becoming a graveyard of goblins. He swaps to a heavy club and starts swinging for the fences. No matter what weapon he picks up, the system gives him the perfect skill to use it. One goblin gets its head absolutely rattled by a massive overhead swing. The monsters are starting to realize they've picked a fight with a monster of their own. Kaiser doesn't give them a moment's rest, driving a blade into a goblin's throat. Then he follows up with a heavy blow to the next one's neck using the club. He finishes the last few off with a massive swing from his blunt weapon. His masteries are leveling up at an insane rate, since he's using every weapon type at once. Looking at the carnage he caused, he's pretty satisfied with his new setup. He expected to learn the skills, but he didn't think he'd be able to use them this effectively right off the bat. He can't help but grin. This adventurer class is even better than he hoped. Meanwhile, Shieldebeest is watching from the sidelines, looking completely shell-shocked. The guy is sweating, wondering if what he just saw was even possible for a newbie. He knows even experienced parties have to work hard to hunt a pack this size. But here's this guy, soloing the entire horde like it was a warm-up. A name from the past pops into his head: Kaiser, the legendary ranker. He wonders if this could actually be the same genius from the old Demrock days. But he quickly shakes the thought. There's no way a legend would be in a party like his. People online have been wondering where the legendary Kaiser went, and most think it's too late for him to catch up now. But Shieldebeest can't stop thinking about the coincidence. He looks at his mysterious teammate again, wondering who he really is. He remembers the rumors that the real Kaiser was a bit of a battle-hungry maniac. Seeing the look on Kaiser's face, he starts to worry the guy might be a little unhinged. But Kaiser's expression remains calm and professional. The leftover weapons dissolve into light as the battle finally comes to an end. Kaiser is satisfied with the results. He's officially bypassed the game's equipment restrictions. Now that the coast is clear, it's time to check his status. Kaiser pulls up his status window to check his progress. He's reached level 4 and has some pretty impressive stats for a beginner, not to mention a couple of powerful titles. He's managed to jump 3 levels from just one hunt, efficiency at its finest. He starts allocating his points, focusing on building a solid foundation with his sword skills while boosting his agility and senses. Between his titles like the First Slayer and the rare necklace from Charlie, his overall stats are looking incredibly healthy. Kaiser takes a moment to breathe, looking completely unfazed by the sudden power spike. His teammates, on the other hand, are absolutely losing it, They can't stop praising him for how easily he handled that horde. Shieldebeest and the archer start whispering, wondering if this guy is actually the Kaiser from the legend. The tank admits that after seeing that performance, it's the only thing that makes sense. Even the archer is starting to buy into it, while the man himself just scratches his head in the background, trying to play it cool. Kaiser just gives them an awkward smile, thinking to himself that they're actually right. He is the real deal. The archer is still in shock, asking if Kaiser somehow managed to pull some god-tier mythic trait to deal that kind of damage. He plays it down, chalking it up to his traits and a bit of luck with his titles. The news of him having a title sends them into another frenzy, with Yubingkung already trying to secure a spot on his good side for the future. The group takes a well-deserved break in the lush greenery of the forest. Once their stamina is back up, Shieldebeest is ready to get back to the grind. Feeling bold with Kaiser on their side, the archer suggests taking on an even bigger group of goblins this time. Kaiser just chuckles and goes along with the plan. Everyone is hyped up, ready to dive back into the action now that they know they have a powerhouse in their party. But for a split second, Kaiser's expression shifts as his mind drifts elsewhere. He's suddenly hit with a memory of his old days, walking with a crew of world-class rankers who used to rely on him for everything. He remembers the bickering and the egos, a world away from the earnest newbies he's with now. He stares up at the sky, wondering where all those old faces are now and what they're up to. His introspection is cut short by a sudden, blood-red system alert. An urgent quest to hunt a mutant goblin warrior. Kaiser's gaze sharpens as he reads the name of the target. It seems his warm-up is officially over. Sunlight filters through the clouds as they prepare for the mission. The group reaches the mouth of a massive, dark cave. Shieldebeest and Yubingkung are sweating bullets, but Kaiser is completely chill. They've been hunting non-stop on their way to this tomb. The extra grinding paid off, getting the whole squad up to level 9. But they're entering a place notorious for being a newbie slayer. Online forums are full of players venting about how impossible this raid is. Ard's tomb is the first major wall, and most rookies die on their first try. The difficulty spike here is insane compared to the trash mobs they fought outside. It's a dungeon that demands perfect teamwork and following specific patterns. This is the spot where most new parties end up getting wiped. Some people even suggest soloing it, just to avoid teammates who keep messing up. Yubingkung looks worried as she thinks about the stakes. Shieldebeest tells everyone they have to clear this if they want to move up to higher raids. Kaiser just watches, his face looking bored as usual. Just like in the real world, companies here prefer experienced workers over rookies. Big guilds won't even talk to you if you haven't cleared this specific boss. People try to lie about their records, but it's not easy to cheat the system. Cheap tactics don't work in this game because every action is tracked. Everything is recorded in the Book of Adventures. It logs your quests, your materials, and every boss kill you've ever achieved. That record is basically a player's resume. To get into the next city's parties, they need this clear on their record. They have no choice but to grit their teeth and push through. Kaiser knows the boss in the next city is actually mandatory to progress. He takes a step forward. They arrive at the habitat of the variant goblin warrior, a rare-grade boss. Kaiser turns back with a smirk and asks if they're ready to head in. Shieldebeest and the others have studied the strategy guides and are determined not to fail. The party gathers at the foot of the massive stone doors. Shieldebeest looks over at Kaiser one last time. He takes a deep breath and walks toward the gate. He touches the door, activating the raid entrance portal. A system prompt appears, asking the party to confirm they're ready to start. Aimforthead is hyped and ready for the fight. Everyone agrees to enter, Kaiser included. The system checks their levels and starts the entry sequence. Kaiser stretches and cracks his knuckles, ready for a warm-up. The heavy stone doors slowly groan open, revealing the arena. The group steps inside, their boots echoing on the stone floor. Torches flare to life along the walls, lighting up the cavern. Waiting for them is the elite boss, sitting on 20,000 health. The variant goblin warrior lets out a low growl, gripping its massive cleaver. It unleashes a deafening roar that rattles the entire chamber. Shieldebeest and the others look on in horror, realizing just how dangerous an elite boss can be. Kaiser shouts a warning, sensing the attack before it even starts. The beast leaps into the air, coming down like a ton of bricks with its blade raised high. Shieldebeest knows that even with Kaiser's help, the party has to stand on its own feet. He realizes Kaiser can't protect everyone at the same time. The tank steps forward, determined to fulfill his role and hold the line. The boss charges forward with a terrifying howl. Shieldebeest commands the team to scatter and stay out of the monster's path. They dive for cover just as the goblin slams into the ground. Shieldebeest identifies the charge as the first part of its attack pattern. He braces his shield and catches the monster's follow-up strike, the force vibrating through his arms. The goblin is stunned for a few seconds after its attack is blocked. Shieldebeest calls out to the group, telling them that now is their chance to strike. Aimforth Head and Yubingkung immediately launch their counter-offensive. Spells and steel collide with the boss, creating a massive explosion of light and sound. The smoke clears to reveal the monster recovering, its eyes glowing with rage. Shieldebeest is taken aback by how quickly the beast is getting back on its feet. The goblin warrior winds up for another devastating swing. Shieldebeest catches the massive blade on his shield once again. His protection trait activates, glowing brightly as it buffs his stats. He yells that he's got the boss's attention, urging the others to keep up the pressure. Before the tanker could even finish his sentence, Kaiser had already blurred past, unleashing a barrage of slashes upon the boss. More magical blasts fly toward the boss, hammering its defenses. A massive explosion rocks the monster, pushing its health lower and lower. Shieldebeest thinks the first phase is going perfectly, and that they have the fight under control. But his teammates from behind suddenly shouted a warning that the next pattern was coming sooner than expected. The boss's health bar drops below half, triggering a move that wasn't in any of the guides. Shieldebeest freezes up as the monster prepares a move he wasn't ready for. Kaiser doesn't hesitate, launching himself at the boss with incredible speed. He strikes with a flurry of blows, his movements almost too fast to follow. The monster screams in pain as Kaiser's blade finds its mark. Shieldebeest looks on, completely stunned by the sheer skill Kaiser is displaying. Kaiser continues his relentless assault, not giving the boss a single second to breathe. With a dark smirk and glowing eyes, he declares that the monster's pattern is officially over. Cut to the past in his old game. Kaiser's group had long established a legendary reputation as the strongest party on the server. During an interview, a reporter asks him to share the secret behind his team's success in clearing impossible dungeons. Kaiser keeps it simple. It's just about everyone focusing on what they do best. She points out that a standard party usually needs 4 roles: a tank, DPS, healer, and support. But since his party doesn't use a tank, she wonders if raiding like that is even possible. Kaiser admits that tanks are actually a crucial part of any team. They have to face the boss alone, interrupt its attack patterns, and soak up all the damage. The reporter is stunned when he tells her that he's the one who handles all of that himself. A confident smirk is his only response. Back in the present, the boss is absolutely losing its mind. Shieldebeest watches in disbelief, unable to make sense of what he's seeing. Even dedicated tanks struggle to shut down boss patterns using their crowd control skill. But Kaiser is doing it effortlessly without using a single skill, and he's managing it all while playing as a pure DPS. The mutant goblin warrior lets out a massive roar. For Kaiser, patterns at this level aren't even a challenge. He strikes again, shutting down the monster's momentum. The rest of the group is speechless as he continues to target only the vital spots. Shieldebeest keeps a close eye on the health bar. The boss's HP finally hits the 20% mark. He warns everyone to brace themselves because Phase 2 is starting. The team gets into position, ready for whatever comes next. A system alert flashes. The boss's mutant trait is finally manifesting. The ground cracks as the warrior's trait activates. The goblin goes into a full berserk state, boosting all its stats at once. Kaiser has been waiting for this part. Mutant traits are special abilities that vary from one boss to the next. This specific goblin has 2 such traits, known as 007 Bang. If the party lands 4 physical attacks in a row, everyone gets a debuff. And if 3 magic attacks land consecutively, the boss will reflect all damage. The boss lets out a piercing scream. Due to the berserk effect, the entire party's attack and movement speeds drop. The group panics, realized how much harder the fight just got. But Kaiser receives a unique notification. His hero trait is preventing mental contamination. He is completely immune to the boss's mutant and berserk effects. He grins, realizing those nasty debuffs don't apply to him at all. Shieldebeest orders everyone to stop attacking and just focus on dodging for now. He assumes Kaiser is stuck too, but Kaiser just tells him to wait. He steps forward, eyes glowing with a dark intensity. Kaiser smiles, ready to end this whole raid himself. Shieldebeest can only watch as the pressure mounts. With a sudden burst of speed, Kaiser leaps into the air to finish the job. The mutant warrior lets out one last, desperate roar as the fight reaches its peak. Kaiser meets the monster's fury head-on, landing a massive strike that lights up the cave. His eyes glow with a cold, red light as he prepares for the final blow. He tears through the boss with relentless efficiency, blood spraying across the cavern walls. Shieldebeest and Yubingkung are struggling to move, completely weighed down by the boss's status ailments. They watch in total shock, wondering how Kaiser is the only one standing tall and unaffected. Shieldebeest can only stare, the realization of the massive skill gap finally hitting him. Another blow connects, cutting deep into the boss's defense. In this moment, Kaiser truly looks like a god of battle. He continues the slaughter, moving in a blur that the monster can't even hope to track. The mutant goblin is completely overwhelmed, its health bar vanishing under the assault. Shieldbeast whispers his name, unable to look away from the display of power. The monster screams in agony as its end draws near. Kaiser doesn't show a flicker of emotion, staying perfectly focused on the kill. He swings his blade in a wide, lethal arc, slicing through everything in its path. Every movement is calculated for maximum lethality. He's not just fighting at this point. He's methodically dismantling his opponent. Blood splatters everywhere as he lands another critical hit. Kaiser finally stands still, the red aura around him pulsing with power. A stream of system notifications confirms his level has increased along with his sword proficiency. With his brutal and powerful slashes, Kaiser leaves the boss completely breathless. Faced with an overwhelming assault and not a single wasted movement, the massive monster can only stand frozen to the spot, paralyzed in pure terror. Giving the opponent no room to breathe, he executes a godlike blink from a distance. In the blink of an eye, Kaiser's silhouette is already closing in, right behind the boss's back. Kaiser slightly lowered his head, looking down. In that moment, his eyes suddenly flared with a murderous red glow, a sign that his final ultimate move had been activated. A massive pillar of light erupts brilliantly the moment his slash cleaves the Titan's body in two. The sheer power of the strike is so overwhelming that it swallows everything in its wake. As the light fades, the once fearsome boss is reduced to nothing but a heap of ruins, collapsing to the ground as its existence officially comes to an end. The system confirms the defeat and announces that the dungeon has been cleared. The rest of the party stands back in stunned silence, barely able to process what they just saw. They start talking amongst themselves, questioning who this guy really is. Shieldbeast wonders to himself if this could actually be the legendary ranker, the real Kaiser. Yubingkung and Brace Your Forehead can only stare with their mouths wide open. They take a moment to look around the empty cavern, still feeling the intensity of the fight. The boss's body lies motionless on the ground, a testament to the one-sided massacre. The final time limit rankings appear, showing Shieldbeast's party in first place by a huge margin. Kaiser calmly grips his sword, looking as if he's ready for the next fight. The contribution rewards are handed out, and of course, Kaiser takes the top spot. He starts collecting his loot, beginning with a rare leather top from the boss. He adds a pair of mutant goblin epaulets to his inventory as well. And to top it off, he acquires the boss's massive red greatsword. But the true reward is the Throne of the Time attack title, granting him a permanent stat boost for his speed. Kaiser looks back at the scene with a satisfied smirk, commenting on the hunt. With a sinister glow in his eyes, he admits that goblins are best enjoyed when they're sliced to pieces. Kaiser sticks the landing, while the massive beast begins its final collapse behind him. It's over. The system confirms the boss is dead, and the dungeon has been cleared. They finished in 29 minutes and 58 seconds, snatching the top spot on the world rankings. The results are official. Kaiser took the top contribution, followed by Shieldbeast and the rest of the party. The loot starts dropping. Rare red leather armor, epaulets, and a massive greatsword. To top it all off, Kaiser earns the legendary Throne of the Time attack title. It's a hero-grade title that buffs his speed and all his stats every time he breaks a record. Kaiser stands over the corpse, looking pretty satisfied with how that went down. He admits it himself. Goblins just look better when they're in pieces. The party takes a breather in the dark cave, still processing the absolute carry they just witnessed. The archer and the mage are left jaw-dropped as they see the extreme rarity of the rewards they've just received. The teammates are tripping over themselves to thank Kaiser for the massive win. Kaiser just brushes it off with a smile, acting like it was no big deal. He's already looking ahead to the next challenge. Shieldbeast pulls up the rankings, asking Kaiser if he wants to see his name at the very top. They're sitting at rank 1, nearly 6 minutes faster than the team in second place. Shieldbeast feels terrible, apologizing for not changing the party name to give Kaiser proper credit. Kaiser just scratches his head, realizing that having your name in the spotlight is a bit of a headache. An achievement like this is enough to get them noticed by the top 10 guilds in the game. Even for a beginner city, holding first place is a massive statement of power. They've managed to rank even higher than the legendary player known as Annihilation. Shieldbeast and his team keep apologizing, feeling like they've stolen his glory. They offer him whatever he wants as compensation. Money, items, you name it. Kaiser just lets out a small, amused laugh at how seriously they're taking this. Shieldbeast looks up, surprised by the reaction. Kaiser tells them to relax, since the system registers the party leader's name automatically anyway. Besides, he didn't even expect to take the top spot this early. He's not a fan of the spotlight anyway. It's usually just more work than it's worth. But he's definitely not complaining about the rewards. He just secured the full warrior set, and the stats on these rare plus items are broken. These are the absolute best items available in this section of the game. With a haul like this, there's no way he could be in a bad mood. He starts cracking up, which just leaves Shieldebeest even more confused. He can't stop laughing at how lucky this run turned out to be. He tells the group again to drop it. They're all good. Shieldebeest is officially a fanboy now, swearing his full loyalty to Kaiser. He thinks Kaiser's personality is just as high level as his combat skills. A portal hums to life as the dungeon prepares to close. As they head out, Shieldebeest admits he used to think the Kaiser hype was over the top, but now he's a true believer. Kaiser looks back at the dungeon one last time, finally understanding what his new identity means. Shieldebeest calls out to him, wondering if he's planning to stay behind. Without a word, Kaiser steps through the portal and leaves the dungeon behind. The blue energy of the warp gate swirls around them as they transition back to the world. They arrive back at the city, its towers reaching up into a clear sky. The group heads straight for Ardback Alley to find a specific shop. The inside of the alchemist's shop is like a different world, packed with strange and magical items. Kaiser takes a look around, his sharp gaze settling on the figure at the counter. A man in a dark cloak stands behind the desk, his face hidden in the shadows. This is Calda the alchemist, and he doesn't seem happy to have visitors. The rest of the party is instantly creeped out, but Kaiser just sees an unpleasant man. Calda stares them down, asking if they've come here to give up on their mission. He starts complaining about how he needs research materials and how most people fail him. Kaiser doesn't say a word. He just slams a vial of dark red liquid onto the counter. Calda's eyes go wide. He can't believe he's looking at the blood of a mutant goblin. He starts yelling in shock because it hasn't even been 40 minutes since they left. The party stands tall, basking in the alchemist's total disbelief. Thanks to Kaiser's max affinity title, Calda goes from grumpy to absolutely obsessed with them. The system confirms the quest is complete, and the rewards start pouring in. Kaiser gets a nice chunk of gold and a custom silver ring crafted by the alchemist himself. The experience from the quest is so massive that Kaiser levels up twice in a row. He's officially cleared Trial 0 and is now allowed to travel to the main continent. As a bonus for his high rank, he even receives a low-grade skill draw ticket. Since he hit level 10, he also snags a random skill draw ticket to test his luck. The rest of the party is losing it, cheering about finally getting to leave the starter area. But there's a hidden reward. Kaiser receives a personal postcard from Calda. It's a rare plus item, a simple postcard written in the alchemist's own handwriting. Kaiser figures he can check the postcard later. He has more important things to do. He pulls up the menu to use his skill draw ticket, the moment he's been waiting for. A set of glowing cards appears before him, floating in a sea of blue light. He stares at the shimmering deck, his heart racing just a little bit. It doesn't have the same presence as the rewards from the Pantheon, but it'll do. He activates his Eye of Truth to see through the cards and pick the best one. He knows a low-grade ticket won't have anything legendary, so he keeps his expectations low. He pulls Charging Slash, a common-grade skill that lets him dash forward while attacking. It's a solid, reliable skill he used back in the day, but his eyes are on the second ticket. He prepares to use the random ticket, hopping for something that'll change the game. A sudden system warning snaps him out of his excitement. He looks at the screen in total disbelief. The system is forcing a logout because he's been playing for 10 hours straight. The draw window is already starting to close as the connection cuts. With only 2 seconds left, Kaiser is desperately trying to finish the draw. The countdown hits its final second, the glowing cards swirling in a blinding vortex of light. Kang Do-yeon lunges forward with a panicked shout, his hand reaching desperately to make the final selection. But the screen suddenly whites out as the system forces a shutdown, cutting his connection just as the draw completes. The gacha cards are spinning like crazy while the countdown hits 2 seconds. Kaiser is desperately trying to lock in a skill before the system boots him out. He's sweating bullets, just yelling for the thing to hurry up. Just as the clock hits 1, a bright golden glow starts to leak from the cards. This looks promising. He's screaming at the screen to give it to him, but the system doesn't care. Time's up, and he's getting a forceful disconnect. The world dissolves into a blinding white light as he's pulled out of the game. Everything goes dark back in his room, leaving only the faint hum of his high-tech gaming capsule. Kang Do-yeon pops the lid and stares into space, looking like he just saw a ghost. He starts gasping for air, clutching his chest like he just ran a marathon. Then he just lets out a massive scream of pure frustration. Getting kicked right at the climax of a pull is every gamer's nightmare. It's a beautiful sunny day outside, but inside that apartment, a gamer's soul is in agony. Do-yeon's sitting there, shaking his legs like crazy. He cannot wait to get back in. He watches the clock hit 10:00. It's finally time. He bites his thumb with a crazy look in his eyes. He's gotta see what he got. Without wasting a second, he dives back into the capsule. The system scans his eyes and verifies his ID, starting the sync process immediately. The loading screen pops up, welcoming him back to the world of God of Savior. A little message tells him to have a pleasant journey, like he's here for a vacation. He spawns right back in Ard's back alley where he left off. Kaiser doesn't even pause to look around. He just sprints down the alley. He's obsessing over that yellow light he saw right before the disconnect. Usually, that means top-tier loot. He checks his inventory and finds one unconfirmed skill card sitting in storage. This is it. He's hopping for something legendary, but he tries to keep his expectations low so he doesn't get hurt. He taps the card, and it bursts into a brilliant display of light. It's the heroic skill, Backstab. It's technically for assassins, and the description says it lets you teleport behind an enemy for massive damage. Kaiser stares at the name in shock. Backstab, really? This is the signature move for assassins. The one skill every ranged player absolutely hates. It closes the gap instantly, making distance completely irrelevant for anyone trying to run away. A sinister smile creeps onto his face. He's a warrior, but he just scored one of the best mobility skills in the game. He starts laughing to himself, realizing he can now tear through both monsters and players without any trouble. Just as he's having his moment, a random couple walks by. The guy is bragging about how much he knows the game. The guy stops mid-sentence, looking totally confused. He looks over and sees some dude standing in the alley, laughing like a villain from a B-movie. Kaiser is so lost in his own excitement, he doesn't even notice how creepy he looks, steam practically coming off him. The couple is absolutely terrified. They're convinced they just ran into a total psycho. They don't even finish their conversation. They just turn around and book it the other way. Kaiser finally snaps out of it, wondering why everyone is suddenly so allergic to that alleyway. He shrugs it off. It's time to stop looking like a newbie and put on his actual gear. He pulls out the loot from the variant Goblin Warrior. The red leather top, the pauldrons, the red greatsword, and Kalda's silver ring. He figures with this set, people might actually think twice before trying to mess with him. He suits up, and man, he looks dangerous. The red armor and that massive sword on his shoulder definitely send a message. A system prompt warns him that once he leaves for the main continent of Raven, there's no coming back to Ard. Kaiser doesn't hesitate. He walks straight into the massive blue portal as the final countdown begins. Kaiser stares ahead, feeling a bit of regret for leaving without a proper goodbye. He thinks back to the party he left behind, realizing he'd actually started to like those guys. The portal countdown hits too, and he accepts that if they're meant to meet again, the game will make it happen. 1 second left. The system confirms he's being transferred to the main continent. A massive pillar of blue light erupts, shooting him straight out of the beginner zone. He lands in a grand city plaza, the kind of place where every player arrives with big dreams and high expectations. Nearby players chat about how this is the real starting point, where everyone gathers to find a party. The sprawling city of Raven stretches out before him, marking the true beginning of his journey. Suddenly, a group of knights on horseback charges through the streets, telling everyone to get out of the way. Guards drag a tied-up criminal through the plaza while he screams for them to let go. Kaiser watches as a bunch of new systems unlock, including the arena, duels, and workshops. The silhouette of the massive city looms over him, a place where beginner perks are a thing of the past. A system tip pops up, advising victims of crimes to report directly to the city guards. He's genuinely impressed, realizing the main continent is on a whole different level. A merchant shouts out to him, offering some local ash beer and complimenting his sharp red outfit. Other vendors are hawking exotic foods like lobster and hot guinea pig soup, promising freebies to any customers. Kaiser starts to see why people get distracted by city life and forget all about hunting. He gives himself a quick slap to stay focused, telling himself he can enjoy the sights later. With his sword on his shoulder and a confident grin, he wonders where he should start his first hunt. It doesn't take long for him to find action, slicing through a goblin with a single fluid motion. He moves out to the Raven Plains, already surrounded by a fresh pack of monsters. His red armor begins to glow as the three-piece set effect kicks in, granting him a massive advantage against goblins. The monsters are instantly paralyzed with fear, their morale tanking the moment they see him. Kaiser launches himself into the air, activating his leaping slash skill to clear the area. He carves right through the center of the pack, the system confirming multiple kills in seconds. He lands perfectly in the tall grass, already looking for the next target. With glowing red eyes and blood on his blade, he looks more like a predator than a player. His red greatsword actually starts gaining attack power with every enemy he puts down. He can't help but laugh, completely intoxicated by the sheer power of his new gear. Between his base stats and the scaling weapon, he's becoming an absolute monster out here. He's having the time of his life, basking in the feeling of being completely untouchable. He pulls up his quest log, nodding that he's just a few more kills away from another level up. His eyes suddenly glow gold as he senses something shifting in the air behind him. A purple ghostly figure lunges out of the shadows. Kaiser instantly realizes this isn't a monster, It's a person. This is Assassination Boy, a masked player who preys on wealthy-looking newbies, and he thinks he's found a gold mine. The assassin draws his daggers, deciding it's time to move in for the kill. He lunges forward, mockingly telling Kaiser that he's going to enjoy this meal. Metal clashes against metal, as the assassin's blade is stopped dead by Kaiser's heavy sword. Assassination Boy's eyes widen, as he realizes his sneak attack didn't even make a dent. Kaiser just stands there, a dark aura radiating from his body as he stares the attacker down. Realizing he's in trouble, the assassin tries to leap back and regain some distance. From the bushes, his partner screams at him to quit stalling and just take the target down already. An archer from the PK group leaps into the air, firing a volley of 3 glowing blue arrows down at Kaiser. Kaiser doesn't even break his stride, effortlessly shredding the magical arrows with a single, powerful arc of his red greatsword. Another member of the group charges in from the side, screaming at the top of his lungs as he raises a heavy axe to strike. Kaiser blocks the blow with ease, his eyes burning with a cold, predatory light as the axe grinds against his blade. With an effortless shove, he sends the axe wielder stumbling back, completely overwhelming him with raw physical power. He adjusts his grip on the hilt of his massive sword, his movements calm and calculated despite the chaos. In one swift, brutal motion, Kaiser slices through the warrior, leaving a trail of blood in the air as the man is cut down. The rest of the ambushers freeze in their tracks, their faces pale with terror as they realize they are no longer the hunters. Assassination Boy begins to back away, trembling as he wonders how a newbie could possibly possess such overwhelming strength. A system notification pops up, marking him as a target. He tries to flee, but Kaiser is already moving, appearing before him like a ghost in a blur of motion. Kaiser towers over the panicked assassin, his silhouette casting a long, dark shadow that seems to swallow the light. With a terrifying, wide-eyed grin, Kaiser looks down at his prey and mockingly asks if he's lost. No matter where you go, there are always people who just won't listen. It's not about official arena duels, it's about unauthorized slaughter. In other words, PKers. They existed back in Demrock, and it's no different in this game. The reasons vary: fun, loot, or just pure frustration. But 9 out of 10 players will tell you the worst are the noob slayers. They prey on people fresh out of the beginner village, killing them and taking everything. Just like the guy standing right in front of Kaiser. Kaiser just smiles and asks if he's lost his way. Assassination Boy freezes. His tracking mark just vanished into thin air. He can't figure out how a swordsman is using an assassin-only skill like backstab. Before he can process it, Kaiser drops him in one clean hit. The rest of the crew follows shortly after. Kaiser stands over the bodies while the system clears him of any crime. He realizes Ard was just a fluke because of the beginner perks. Those guys he met back there were actually unusually decent. But the rest of this world is just crawling with bastards. He ignores the mess and goes to grab his quest rewards. The levels start piling up as he cashes in his work. He officially hits level 17, and the massive west gate finally opens up. Kaiser stands at the threshold, ready to move on. This is Raven West Forest. It's a hunting ground so dangerous that even the NPCs warn you to stay away. Unlike the open plains at the East Gate, this place is a nightmare. The forest is dense, and visibility is basically non-existent. It's swarming with goblins and massive insects. Ambush attacks come from every blind spot between the trees. The difficulty spike here is absolutely absurd. Naturally, an unspoken rule took hold for anyone coming here. You have to form a party of at least 3 people. The area in front of the West Gate is packed with people looking for groups. Tanks and DPS are shouting at the top of their lungs to find someone. Most parties are stuck waiting for a single healer. They're rare because they're a pain to level and not exactly fun to play. A couple of guys notice Kaiser walking toward the gate alone. They assume he's just another poor fool walking into his own funeral. Even the top rankers don't dare go into the West Forest without a full team. They watch him walk off, wondering who he thinks he is. Kaiser doesn't care about their rules and just keeps moving. He vanishes into the dark, suffocating woods. A forest red goblin jumps out and gets taken down instantly. Kaiser isn't wasting any time, tearing through the goblins like they're nothing. Another one tries to ambush him from the branches, but he's already moving. He brings the heavy blade down with enough force to crack the earth. A goblin lunges, and Kaiser just takes to the air. He delivers a powerful kick to the goblin, the impact erupting in a brilliant burst of red energy that lights up the entire forest. He sticks the landing, while the shockwave finishes off the stragglers. One goblin gets pinned to the ground, coughs up blood, and it's game over. Kaiser swings his sword in a wide arc, sending out a wave of destructive power. Suddenly, he spots 3 projectiles heading straight for his head. He doesn't even flinch, spinning his blade to deflect them with a circular shield of energy. The goblin archer watching from the shadows can't believe its eyes. Kaiser looks back with a cold, red glow in his eyes, He's done playing around. He tosses the massive sword into the air, using the momentum for a follow-up strike. The blade bites deep into a goblin, sending blood spraying everywhere. He catches the hilt mid-swing and prepares for the next round. A system message pops up. The warrior set effect has just worn off. The remaining goblins see their chance and swarm him from all sides. Kaiser doesn't look worried. He swaps to a new weapon handle, calling them trash. Thanks to his weapon master trait, all weapon restrictions are officially lifted. He activates backstab, but this time he's wielding a heavy axe. He buries the blade deep into a goblin's skull, ending the fight instantly. The system confirms he just used the basic axe skill, smash. He starts spinning like a whirlwind, carving through anything that gets close. Goblins are getting split wide open as the forest floor turns red. He stands over a pile of corpses as the kill notifications flood his screen. His axe proficiency clicks up to level 2 after that massacre. Kaiser checks his quest list. The goblins are done, but he still needs to find a pendant. He suddenly feels a massive vibration under his feet and looks back. An enormous centipede erupts from the ground right behind him. The monster towers over him, dripping purple slime and looking hungry. Even with all his experience, Kaiser can't help but let out a curse. Deep in the forest, the birds suddenly scatter as something massive stirs below. Kaiser leaps into the air, facing down a giant forest centipede that's towering over the trees. The beast doesn't waste a second, lunging straight at him with its massive mandible. Kaiser lets out a shout, focusing every ounce of his power into his next move. He swings his massive blade with everything he's got, aiming to end this quickly. His eyes flare red as he locks onto the perfect opening in the monster's armor. The centipede screeches, sensing the lethal pressure coming its way. Kaiser spins in a deadly arc, his blade carving through the air with terrifying speed. The strike connects right in the beast's face, crushing its hard carapace. The impact creates a massive shockwave, slamming the monster's head into the dirt. He sticks the landing, but he's already braced for the monster's next move. The beast isn't finished. It lets out another shriek and prepares to lunge again. Kaiser remains calm, staring down the monstrosity with cold, calculated focus. He catches the monster's attack right on his blade, sparks flying from the sheer friction. The sheer weight of the centipede is enough to crush a normal player, but Kaiser holds his ground. A surge of energy crackles around his hands as he pulls a new weapon from his inventory. He mocks the creature's ugly face before delivering a brutal, decapitating swing. Blood sprays everywhere as the centipede's head is completely torn from its body. He doesn't stop there, bringing his sword down one more time to finish the job. The warrior carves through the rest of the armored body with effortless precision. The massive insect finally goes still, as its remains collapse into a heap. The system rewards his effort, bumping his swordsmanship proficiency up to level 10. Kaiser takes a breath as the level-up notification finally pops up. Dust settles around the mangled carcass of what used to be a terrifying area boss. He checks his stats, level 19 with titles like King of Time attack already in the bag. The adventurer starts allocating his points to make sure he stays ahead of the curve. Things are going well, and he's already cleared most of the quests in this zone. He pulls up his menu to see what's left on his to-do list. There's a simple quest to find a lost pendant for a girl named Camilla. It's not exactly a challenge, so he shears his blade and heads out to finish it. He makes his way through the forest as night falls, heading toward the quest marker. Up ahead, he hears some other players getting into a row over who was there first. He spots the tree where the quest item is supposed to be and watches from the shadows. At least the line isn't too long at this hour, which saves him some time. Kaiser blends into the crowd, keeping a low profile while he listens to the local chatter. A few players are talking about an execution order being put out on griefers. They're laughing about an assassin brat who got what he deserved for acting up. Apparently, the guy was going around claiming his name was Kaiser. He's stunned. He didn't expect his name to be brought up like this already. The players dismiss the rumors, thinking it's just some fanboy trying to look cool. They find it hilarious that a swordsman would supposedly use backstabbing skill. Kaiser decides it's best to lay low for a while until the heat dies down. Kaiser knows that a swordsman with assassin skills and 6 traits is a walking target. The top guilds will either try to recruit him or just cut him down before he gets too strong, especially since most of the top-ranked players are from Demrock, and they don't like competition. If they can't control a player like him, they'll do everything they can to destroy him. He manages to snag the lost pendant, checking it off his quest list. He needs to finish this errand for Camilla quickly, while he's still under the radar. He heads back to the city of Raven, keeping a low profile as he enters the gates. Camilla is ecstatic to see him, especially when he returns the jewelry she thought was lost. The quest clears, giving him a nice gold coin and some experience points for his trouble. That boost is exactly what he needed to hit level 20, and earn a random skill draw ticket. Camilla is so grateful that she decides to give him her most treasured item. It's a random gift box that could contain just about anything from her collection of oddities. He gives her a reassuring head pat and tells her to be more careful with her things. His kindness pays off, as a special title activates and maxes out his affinity with her. He heads off, nodding that being nice to NPCs is clearly the way to go in this game. With that quest done, Kaiser looks for something a bit more challenging to tackle. A rare dungeon subjugation quest near the west gate catches his eye. The rewards include another skill draw ticket, so there's no way he's skipping out on this. He considers hitting the ant nest, but the Goblin Chief's den seems like a better bet. The Goblin Dungeon has the gear he needs, but the catch is that it requires a party. He's hesitant to team up because he doesn't want to show off his unique skills just yet. He arrives at the entrance of the Goblin Chief's den, which is already packed with players. Recruitment is in full swing, with everyone shouting for high-level fire mages to join them. Merchants and blacksmiths are also on site, hoping to profit off the raiding parties. Kaiser is surprised to see so many production-type players gathered in such a dangerous spot. A high-level warrior named Bastard Sword rudely rejects a thief who's just looking for a group. He tells the guy to go away, claiming their party doesn't have room for a useless class. Bastard Sword and his crew eventually manage to convince a mage girl to join their ranks. Kaiser watches from a distance, realizing that magic damage is the only thing people care about here. In this specific dungeon, mages are treated like gods because of the way the boss fights. He starts to worry that a lone swordsman like him won't be able to find a group at all. Suddenly, Bastard Sword notices him standing nearby and calls out to him. He offers Kaiser a spot in the party, which is weird considering they already have a full crew. Bastard Sword claims their levels are high enough that his class won't be a problem for the quest. Kaiser immediately senses that something is fishy and wonders if he should play along. He decides to accept the invitation for now, figuring he can handle whatever they throw at him. The system confirms the formation of the Bastard Sword party with 4 members. He takes a good look at his new teammates, sensing a very hostile vibe coming from them. The group's faces are twisted into sinister grins as they prepare to head inside. Kaiser realizes this was no random invite. They definitely know who he is. Outside the dungeon, players are whispering about a high-geared warrior who just arrived. A full warrior set and a greatsword? That's definitely him. A group of 3 players watches Kaiser from the side, their leader, Bastard Sword, looking especially interested. Bastard Sword grins, his eyes already fixed on Kaiser's rare equipment. Kaiser stops when he hears someone calling out to him from behind. Bastard Sword approaches with a friendly smile and asks if he's looking for a party. He mentions their levels are higher, but they're just on a quest, so Kaiser is more than welcome to join. Kaiser acts grateful and accepts the invitation. The party is officially formed, and the group prepares to head in. They arrive at the entrance to the Goblin Chieftain's habitat. A system notification explains the dungeon's rare rank and entry requirements. Inside, Bastard Sword takes out a Goblin Scout with a single, effortless slash. He scoffs, calling the whole thing a piece of cake. Kaiser watches quietly, analyzing their power and teamwork. The system warns them that the chieftain is sending out his soldier. A horde of goblins swarm out from the dark, screeches echoing through the cave. Bastard Sword steps back and suggests Kaiser take the lead this time. The mage girl, ultimate top 10 archmage no cap, tells him it's just a chance to see how he syncs with the team. Kaiser knows exactly what they're doing. They're testing his real skill. He decides to play along for a bit and draws his heavy blade. He charges straight into the goblin ranks. Kaiser triggers charging slash, cleaving through the front line in a spray of blood. Bastard Sword watches with a smug look. Yeah, we found the right one. Shieldbeast agrees, impressed by the damage Kaiser is dealing. Kaiser moves with incredible speed, avoiding every counterattack. Bastard Sword rubs his chin, feeling like something is a bit off about the warrior's skill. Shieldbeast asks him what's bothering him. Kaiser finishes another goblin with a powerful downward swing. Bastard Sword recalls a rumor about an elite assassin who lost to a rookie who supposedly relied only on gear. The mage girl tells him to stop overthinking and just focus on the plan. Bastard Sword agrees. They'll finish the job and then deal with him. Shieldbeast signals the group to move deeper into the tunnels. He warns the others to keep their expressions in check and act natural. Kaiser continues to tear through the goblin ranks with ease. The swordsman rushed over with fake praise, acting as if he were completely overwhelmed by the performance. The mage girl joins in, saying Kaiser could have cleared the whole dungeon alone. Kaiser just smiles and says everyone is doing their part. Shieldbeast asks how Bastard Sword managed to find someone this good. Kaiser's expression turns cold. He sees right through their shameless behavior and bad manners. He realizes they're just waiting for a chance to abandon him and take his gear. Bastard Sword suggests they keep moving now that they've rested. Kaiser stares back, his eyes sharp, He knows exactly what they're up to, and he's not going down easily. Kaiser continues to slice through the goblins with cold efficiency. Shieldebius tries to keep up, bashing a monster back with his massive shield. A sudden burst of magic detonates right next to Kaiser, but he ducks just in time. Bastard Sword snaps at his mage, telling her to aim properly. She stammers that she did, but the goblin moved. The three high-level players watch Kaiser with growing unease, wondering if he's really just that lucky. Little do they know, Kaiser has already figured out they're trying to accidentally hit him from behind. A system alert rings out. The boss stage has officially opened as the giant stone doors creak apart. The atmosphere shifts as the goblin chieftain detects the intruders entering his domain. Elite soldiers swarm the entrance, their stats flashing in a red warning box. A massive goblin elite leaps from the darkness with a bone-chilling roar. Bastard Sword sees his chance and orders Kaiser to handle the elites, while the rest of them move in. But Kaiser doesn't follow orders. He just disappears into the shadows, leaving them stunned. Bastard Sword spins around, looking for any sign of the rookie he thought he was leading. Reality sets in as they realize Kaiser caught on to their plan. The mage girl points ahead and screams for them to look. Bastard Sword's face pales as the elite goblins close in on them instead. One of the monsters lunges at the party, forcing them into a desperate defense. Shieldebius takes a heavy blow, the impact shaking him to his core as the goblin roars in his face. Bastard Sword yells for his mage to finish the creature off quickly, while he tries to hold the line. The archmage fumbles with her staff, her eyes wide with terror as she starts to chant. A massive flaming boulder begins to form above her, the heat distorting the air in the cramped tunnel. She unleashes the spell, a chaotic explosion of fire and earth that rocks the cave. The smoke clears, and the mage's face is frozen in pure horror. A massive red foot slams onto the ground with enough force to crack the stone. The goblin chieftain stands before them, his eyes glowing with murderous intent as steam hisses from his mouth. The system displays the boss's traits: cowardice, selfish defense, and revenge. The tanker tried to salvage the situation, shouting that they would draw the boss's aggro first. He suddenly stops, noticing Kaiser walking calmly through the chaos. The mage girl screams in a mix of rage and fear, demanding to know how Kaiser is even here. Kaiser emerges from the shadows, his massive blade resting casually on his shoulder. He looks them dead in the eye and asks if they were friends with Assassin Boy, the guy who tried to hunt him before. With the goblins closing in, the mage tried to play nice, suggesting they set aside their grudges to clear the dungeon together. Kaiser stops and thinks for a second, then agrees that working together sounds like a reasonable idea. The mage girl starts to relax, thinking she's managed to trick him one last time. But before she can even blink, blood sprays across the cave walls. Kaiser leans in with a terrifying, red-eyed grin and delivers his final answer. But I refuse. Kaiser calmly walks toward the group. The mage girl, ultimate top 10 archmage no cap, stammers in disbelief, wondering how he's still alive. He ignores her shock and asks about the assassin kid they were with earlier. Kaiser's eyes glow with a cold red light as he asks if they were all friends. Yiwen tries to stall, suggesting they should focus on clearing the dungeon together before settling their differences. Kaiser tilts his head, admitting that logic actually makes some sense. Relieved, the mage girl agrees, thinking they have a deal. A sudden strike sends blood spraying across the cavern. Kaiser towers over them with a dark grin, deciding he just doesn't want to cooperate. The system confirms the kill. Since she was flagged as a villain, Kaiser doesn't lose any karma for ending her. He expected as much. They were never planning to play fair. He used the back grab skill to hide his presence and strike from the shadows. He looks back at the body, surprised the skill worked even on someone already dead. Yiwen is in a panic, screaming that killing their mage just doomed them all. Kaiser ignores the yelling and asks if the guy knows his motto. Yiwen can only stare in confusion. The rule is simple: never join hands with scum who try to stab you in the back. Anything built on a foundation like that is bound to rot eventually. Yiwen's eyes widen as he recognizes the dagger Kaiser is holding. Kaiser is impressed. He realized it was his friend's weapon so quickly. Yiwen can't understand how a swordsman is using an assassin's weapon, or what he thinks he can do with it. He warns Kaiser that he'll never clear the dungeon alone if he kills them. He points out the goblin chieftain's special defense trait. The boss completely blocks all physical attacks. Yiwen laughs, saying mages are the only ones who matter here, and a dagger is useless. Kaiser just calmly mentions status ailments. He spins the blade, asking what the guy thinks those count as. Yiwen thinks he's lost it if he's planning to rely on something like bleeding. Kaiser clarifies that this isn't going to be your typical bleeding effect. The antagonist is left speechless. Kaiser blurs into motion, moving past his target in a flash. The system alerts highlight an overwhelming stat difference between them. Yiwen starts to say it won't work, but then he suddenly coughs up blood. The bleeding status triggers, And the damage is massive because Kaiser's perception is so much higher. His health bar plummets instantly, dropping below 50%. Yihun is reeling, unable to comprehend how a level 20 player is overpowering him at level 24. He desperately tries to make sense of the power gap. Kaiser looks down at him, knowing the guy is completely lost. He explains that the skill came from a high-level gacha ticket. The rare skill card for bleeding shows it's restricted to rogues and depends heavily on stat differences. Kaiser admits he was actually surprised by one specific feature of this game. Unlike other worlds, status ailments here actually stack up even if they're from the same class. Kaiser reflects on the shock people feel when they see someone using high-level rogue skills with such precision. Yihun is coughing up blood, unable to believe the insane damage output coming from a lower-level player. With his last bit of strength, he accuses Kaiser of being a hacker. The system confirms the kill, officially removing the player Bastard Sword from the game. Since the group was flagged as villains, Kaiser's karma stat doesn't take a hit for the kill. He just sighs, bored by the predictable excuses every loser makes before they die. The paladin screams in horror as he watches his leader go down. The realization hits him that he's the only one left standing in this nightmare. He looks at the corpses of his teammates, wondering how their plan to jump Kaiser went so horribly wrong. Kaiser's eyes flare with a murderous red light. The mistake wasn't the plan, it was thinking they could handle him. The paladin finally understands that they never should have started this fight in the first place. He turns to run, desperate to escape before he becomes the next casualty. But Kaiser moves faster, swinging his blade in a wide, bloody arc. The paladin is driven to his knees, immediately suffering from the bleeding effect. The system notes the massive damage increase caused by the overwhelming difference in their stats. He's hanging by a thread, staring at the floor in absolute shock. Another notification pops up. The player buying Oop Paladin has been eliminated. The dungeon floor is now a graveyard for the villains who tried to betray him. Kaiser checks his blade, satisfied that investing 15 points into strength was the right move. His stat window shows he's pushed his physical power to the limit, hoping it's enough for what's coming. A massive red-skinned monster looms in the shadows, watching him. The ground is littered with the bodies of its fallen subordinates. The goblin chieftain lets out an earth-shaking roar, enraged by the slaughter of its kind. Kaiser looks up, unfazed by the beast's fury. He realizes he still needs to finish the job and clear out the last guy here. A dark smirk plays on his lips as he asks if the boss is ready to have some fun. The giant beast lunges through the air, aiming to crush him. Kaiser plants his foot and readies his counterattack. He lands a crushing kick right to the chieftain's jaw. The force of the blow sends teeth and blood flying into the air. He follows up with a lightning-fast slash across the monster's face. The massive red brute is sent tumbling backward into the dirt. Kaiser stands his ground, eyes narrowed and focused on his prey. Through the thick dust, the chieftain's eyes begin to glow with a menacing yellow light. The boss activates its selfish defense, a trait that makes it almost impossible to hurt with physical attacks. Kaiser doesn't hesitate, charging back in with even more speed. He carves a deep line into the monster's side before it can even swing back. The bleeding effect triggers instantly, and the chieftain's health starts to drain rapidly. The beast looks back in shock, realizing it's actually in danger. Kaiser emerges from the smoke, shrouded in a red, murderous aura. He grips his dagger tight, telling the monster it's time to wrap things up. The chieftain lets out a high-pitched, desperate shriek as the end approaches. Seeing its health plummet, the goblin chieftain turns tail and sprints desperately into the darkness of the cave. Kaiser doesn't let up for a second, instantly activating the skill back grab to seal the monster's fate. The chieftain lets out a series of pained gasps, paralyzed by fear as it realizes there's no way out. In a blur of motion, Kaiser is right in the beast's face, staring it down with a cold, ruthless smile that promises a swift end. "Where do you think you're going?" The chieftain is panicking, trying to crawl away. Kaiser's done playing around. He pulls out a dagger and says it's time to wrap this up. The monster lets out a desperate screech. It tries to bolt deeper into the dark cavern, but Kaiser is faster. He triggers his back grab skill. One last scream from the beast. Kaiser vanishes and reappears right behind it in a flash. He asks again where it thinks it's going, flashing a cold smile. The boss gives one final, terrified shriek. Blood sprays across the cavern walls. The chieftain collapses. The system pings, boss defeated and dungeon cleared. Kaiser levels up and his dagger mastery hits level 5. A rare item drops, the chieftain's leather belt. He picks it up and smiles. A level 20 rare item is exactly what he was looking for. He checks the stats. Swapping belts drops his stamina for a second, but the new gear gives him a solid boost to his strength and stamina. He thinks that if there had been a time limit, he could have easily taken a ranker spot. Still, not every dungeon has those kinds of rules. He turns his attention to the loot left behind by the guys he just took out. He scores a rare shield called Silver Iron, a rare grade, These guys must have spent a fortune on their equipment. Then he finds the training sword that belonged to the guy calling himself Bastard Sword. It's a rare plus grade. He looks at the sword, finding the name pretty ironic. He figures the guy was just a hardcore role player who couldn't actually live up to his big talk. He decides he'll just sell the rest of the gear for some quick cash. Kaiser activates his Eye of Truth and notices something strange. There's a weird red light pulsing from deeper in the cave. He wonders if it's an herb or something hidden. The light is way too intense for a normal plant. The system goes off. He just discovered a hidden dungeon, the Black Goblin Shaman's hideout. Since he's the first one to find it, he earns the title Competent Explorer. He stares at the glowing red portal, surprised to find a hidden dungeon in a place like this. There are all sorts of different dungeons in this game world, from standard party dungeons and labyrinths to special event zones. But hidden dungeons are by far the rarest and hardest to find. They stay locked away from most players. Even classes specialized in exploring have a hard time spotting them. They're usually in impossible locations and require very specific conditions to enter. The system confirms he's alone and not in a party. All conditions are met. Kaiser is shocked by how brutal the requirements are. To find a hidden dungeon inside a party-type dungeon, you have to be completely solo. Finding this place without a guide would have been a waste of time for anyone else. The dungeon info window pops up. It's a hero-grade hidden dungeon with a single boss. Kaiser pulls his sword with a smirk. Hero grade? He's definitely not passing this up. A veteran ranker once compared entering a hidden dungeon to shoving your head into the jaws of a beast. Most users thought he was being overdramatic, but those who actually found one knew exactly what he meant. The comparison is simple. What happens when you stick your head in a monster's mouth? It snaps shut. A hidden dungeon is just like that. It waits silently for its prey to arrive before trapping them inside. Once you step in, there's no turning back. Kaiser steps through the portal and instantly feels the weight of the dungeon. A dark vortex of energy swirls around him as he enters. A cursed orb hits him dead center, inflicting a status effect called Dark Vision. The system warns him that his field of view will be narrowed for a while, but Kaiser's hero trait kicks in, providing mental resistance against the corruption. He shrugs off the Dark Vision effect like it was nothing. Kaiser smirks, nodding the fierce greeting he just received. A raspy voice echoes through the cave, demanding to know how a human dared enter its home. The floor begins to crawl with undead creatures, all eyes fixed on the intruder. Undead goblins shamble forward, growling through rotted teeth. Undead spiders join the swarm, their many eyes glowing with purple light. Kaiser looks at the decaying monsters and just finds them gross. The boss watches from its throne, assuming its children have Kaiser terrified. The system identifies the boss as Jihad Black, a hero grade named Goblin with traits in necromancy and shamanism. Kaiser is surprised to see a named boss so early in a hidden dungeon. He wonders what kind of rewards this one will drop. The last high-tier species he fought gave him a pretty good haul. He flashes a confident grin, curious about how tough the fight will be this time. Jihad Black stares at him, confused about how a human even discovered this place. The shaman doesn't sense an explorer's aura on Kaiser, making him a truly peculiar being. Kaiser notes that for a goblin, the boss is surprisingly sharp. The shaman tells him that since he's already stepped foot in here, there's no way out. The undead swarm hisses and shrieks, ready to tear him apart. Kaiser remains completely relaxed, which only irritates the boss more. He tells the shaman that a ranged fighter should always stay alert when the enemy is close. The boss is caught off guard by Kaiser's sudden movement. Jihad activates corpse control, his speed boosted by his nimble fingers trait. He triggers corpse explosion, turning his own minions into bombs. The shaman laughs, thinking he's caught the human in the blast, but his expression shifts to pure shock when Kaiser emerges unscathed. He can't understand how someone could move that fast. Kaiser stands several feet away, surrounded by a red aura. He's holding a blood-slicked dagger, having already landed a hit. The shaman is stunned to find he's already been inflicted with bleeding. Kaiser asks if he's surprised, reminding the boss that he should have stayed tense. Enraged, the shaman calls him a little rat and summons more corpses. Kaiser just wants to see how long the goblin can keep up the fight. Kaiser dodges a massive purple blast, his eyes focused on his opponent's frantic movements. Jihad Black continues his desperate casting, purple energy swirling violently around his hands. The cave floor erupts in a series of explosions, but Kaiser navigates the chaos with practiced ease. Kaiser's eyes glow with an intense light, reading every minute movement the boss makes. He can see it all. To Jihad Black, this human is just another soul to be consumed, yet he can't seem to land a hit. The boss thinks his undead minions have cornered the boy, but Kaiser is just waiting for the perfect opening. This is the end. The shaman screams, his face twisted in a murderous, confident grin. The system chimes as the boss prepares a truly devastating attack. Great corpse explosion. The resulting blast is massive, filling the cavern with purple light, yet Kaiser is already out of range. Desperate, Jihad Black swings his arms, trying to catch the elusive intruder in his necrotic spells. Kaiser weaves through the chaotic mess of energy beams with the grace of a seasoned veteran. He realizes he can predict exactly where the next strike will land and what the boss plans next. The shaman pours even more mana into his spells, determined to finish this insolent human. The purple haze of necrotic energy thickens, threatening to swallow Kaiser whole as the corpse is close in. "It's over," Jihad yells, certain that his latest combined spell has finally trapped his prey. A system notification confirms the boss is using his corpse substitution art to trigger another explosion. The dungeon shakes from the force of the blast as the shaman detonates his own minions at point-blank range. Jihad Black gloats, thinking Kaiser is dead, but a system message reveals his mark on the target has vanished. A shadow looms behind the shaman, causing his celebratory grin to falter as he realizes he's no longer alone. Kaiser's voice whispers right in his ear, mocking his failure. "Did your skill miss?" Before the boss can even turn around, Kaiser's fist connects solidly with his jaw in a powerful punch. The force of the blow sends the goblin shaman tumbling backward across the jagged stone floor. Jihad Black wheezes, green ichor dripping from his mouth as he struggles to comprehend the human's speed. Kaiser stands over his fallen foe, his expression one of cold, bored indifference. A dark, fiery aura begins to radiate from Kaiser, making him look more like a monster than the boss. The shaman managed to sputter out a threat of revenge, his green eyes wide with terror. Kaiser doesn't give him a chance to recover, delivering a brutal punch that silences the boss's whining. He follows up with another strike to the face, determined to end this mockery of a fight quickly. A flurry of blows rains down on the boss, each one landing with sickening force. "W8, Jihad Black screams, begging for a reprieve as Kaiser pauses, his hands stained with green blood. The boss whines about foul play, clutching his face and crying that hitting his bones is against the rules. Kaiser stares down at the pathetic, sniveling creature, wondering what kind of boss he's actually fighting. He looks genuinely disappointed, questioning how such a weakling could be considered hero grade. A sudden explosion erupts behind Kaiser, but he remains calm, analyzing the shaman's true strength. He realizes that while the spells are strong, the boss himself is remarkably fragile and cowardly. The boss leaps backward, as if it had just successfully pulled off a massive scam on our protagonist. Looking back, Kaiser found this move completely baffling. Has he not given it enough of a beatdown yet? Or is this thing really delusional enough to think it can still escape his grasp? Jihad Black begins to laugh hysterically, hidden within a shroud of dark smoke. Foolish human. A system alert warns Kaiser that the boss is manifesting a new hidden trait, bloodline factor. The notification explains that once the manifestation is complete, the shaman's status will drastically increase. Kaiser's eyes narrow as he realizes the threat level is about to jump from hero to hero plus grade. Knowing he can't let the boss reach its full potential, Kaiser draws the massive sword from his back. "I can't just leave him be." Kaiser charges forward like a crimson streak, his speed and power amplified by his resolve to end the fight quickly. System notifications flood his vision, confirming that his warrior set bonus is active and providing a significant damage boost against goblin-type enemies like Jihad Black. With his massive blade raised high, Kaiser prepares to deliver a finishing blow, his mind focused on a single, fundamental truth about combat. The impact of his strike is cataclysmic, causing a blinding explosion of energy as an additional damage bonus from his fury effect is applied to the boss. Jihad Black stares in disbelief as his transformation is interrupted by sheer, raw power, unable to comprehend how a human could possess such overwhelming strength. Kaiser's eyes burn with an unyielding red light as he delivers his final judgment. In the face of truly overwhelming damage, all enemies are equal. A final strike cuts through the darkness. Jihad Black lets out one last scream before he's completely obliterated. The system confirms the dungeon clear. Kang Do-yun, Kaiser, stands victorious as the achievement is logged in his adventure book. A pillar of light signals a level up along with the loot drop. He scores a hero-grade Vengeful Spirit Orb from the shaman. Next up is the shaman's robe, another hero-grade item that hides the user's face. Kaiser checks out the new cloak, impressed by the high-tier rewards. It's a bit of an odd piece of gear, but he's not complaining. Then things get weird with an unidentified item called Trace of a Forgotten Clan. He's seen stuff like this before in his past life, but its purpose is still a mystery. He shrugs it off for now. Something else caught his eye. It's an unidentified card. In this game, cards are used for everything from skills to enchanting. Even powerful boss monsters get turned into cards once they're defeated. Kaiser takes a closer look at his newest acquisition. It's the Jihad Black card, a hero-grade item that lets him summon the boss as a guardian. A guardian, this could be big. Guardians are basically personal bodyguards for players. Usually, it's things like fire salamanders or stone golems. Kaiser isn't exactly jumping for joy, yet since most of them are useless. Unless you're a top-tier ranker with legendary beasts, they usually just drain your gold. Still, he taps summon to see what he's working with. Bolts of energy crackle, and a tiny, pathetic-looking goblin pops out. This is the hero grade, Jihad Black. His loyalty is sitting at a big fat 0. Most of his skills are locked too, because his level is so low. The little guy isn't happy about the situation either, immediately yelling at Kaiser. Kaiser stares down at the shrimp, wondering if he got ripped off. He was expecting something majestic like a Pegasus. Not this. Jihad is already throwing a tantrum about being a filthy human's servant. He just stays on the ground, crying about his miserable fate. Kaiser reads over the traits: opportunist, strong against the weak. It's basically a list of red flags. The system warning pops up. His loyalty is so low it's dangerous. The goblin gives him a wicked look, clearly plotting a backstab already. Kaiser's eye twitches. This is going to be a problem. He decides right then and there that he can't let this slide. He takes a step toward the cowering goblin. Jihad tries to act tough, demanding to know what the human wants. That was the wrong choice of words. Master Kaiser isn't feeling very patient. He looms over the little guy, his gaze turning ice cold. The goblin realizes he just messed up big time. Kaiser cracks his knuckles with a terrifying grin. It's time for some aggressive re-education, starting with 1 hit per second. Jihad Black starts sweating buckets as things take a dark turn. Kaiser cracks his knuckles with a terrifying grin. It's time for some aggressive re-education. The little goblin screams in terror as the master closes in. A chorus of painful shrieks echoes through the deep, dark cave. Strange system messages pop up. The more Kaiser beats him, the more his loyalty actually goes up. Talk about a weird trait. Outside the game, the sun is setting over the city. Do-Yun takes off his headset and stretches out, finally ending a long session. He stretched his arms and looked out the window, noticing that it was already getting dark. He steps into the living room and checks on the dinner situation. His younger sister, Kang Ji-yoon, is already busy lounging and munching on chips. Ji-yoon just keeps chewing, telling him their mom isn't around right now. Do-Yun stares at her, a bit annoyed by her lazy energy. He asks what she's even watching on TV. Turns out it's GOS. Do-Yun is shocked to find out his sister actually plays the same game. She says everybody plays it these days, and reveals she's already level 71. Do-Yun can't believe it. 71? She's higher level than he expected. He asks her how long she's been grinding to get that far. Ji-yoon tells him it's been about 6 months. A friend offered to carry her, so she just stuck with it. 6 months to hit 70. Do-Yun starts doing some mental math. She adds that she doesn't spend 10 hours a day on it like some losers. Do-Yun just stares at her, feeling a little called out. The news on TV switches to a story about the Hero Guild. Ji-yoon perks up immediately. Do-Yun asks if they're actually a big deal. She explains they're incredibly popular right now, especially with people their age. He's not convinced, nodding they haven't even cracked the top 10 rankings. The screen shows the guild leader, Vers, a guy with long blue hair and shining gold armor. Ji-yoon admits it's mostly because he's a total hunk. Apparently, the girls prefer a pretty face over actual combat rankings. Do-Yun scoffs, thinking the guy looks more like a pop star than a warrior. Ji-yoon gushes about how handsome he is, putting him on a whole different level. Do-Yun just rolls his eyes as she continues to fawn over the screen. He gets up, deciding it's time to hit the gym instead of listening to this. But Ji-yoon mentions how popular the guild leader's new tube channel is. Do-Yun stops in his tracks. She says all the big players are making videos now, sometimes pulling in 100 million views. Do-Yun's heart practically skips a beat. That's a massive audience. He asks her if that means he's making a fortune. Ji-yoon says she heard he makes around 1 billion won a year. 1 billion won. Do-Yun's brain immediately starts counting how many pieces of fried chicken that would buy him. He starts muttering the number to himself as he walks away. Ji-yoon watches him, wondering what's suddenly gotten into her brother. He just keeps repeating it, completely lost in his own world. He goes straight to his room and slams the door. Ji-yoon is left alone, weirded out by his behavior. Inside, Do-Yun hops back into the game capsule and initiates the login sequence. Back in the world of GOS, Kaiser decides he's going to start recording everything. If people are making billions, he's getting a slice of that pie. Jihad Black is waiting right there as Kaiser steps back into the dungeon. Kaiser notices the little guy is skipping the formalities already. The goblin quickly tries to correct himself, but Kaiser tells him to just use whatever name feels comfortable. Kaiser pulls out some spare gear and tosses it over to his new servant. He explains that he can't use it yet anyway, and the goblin might as well look the part. Jihad is overjoyed at the gift, but strangely enough, his loyalty stat actually takes a small dip. Kaiser is immediately annoyed. Why is the loyalty going down for a gift? The goblin gushes with thanks, and just as fast as it dropped, the loyalty points shoot right back up. Kaiser sighs, realizing this little guy's loyalty is about as stable as a rubber band. Now wearing a dark hooded cloak, Jihad asks where their next destination is. Kaiser gives a confident smirk, telling him they're about to do some serious running. Jihad looks a bit confused, not quite sure what his master has in mind. The pair starts tearing through the forest, leaving a trail of broken monsters in their wake. System messages confirm they've taken down a red goblin and a giant spider with ease. Jihad looks down at the carnage, pretending to feel sorry for the poor things they just slaughtered. Kaiser rests his massive, bloodied sword on his shoulder and calls the goblin over. He gestures for the little guy to hurry it up. It's time for a different kind of lesson. Seeing the master's command, the little guy came scurrying over and presented himself immediately. Kaiser sits back on a log and tells Jihad to gather the loot and try out some necromancy on the bodies. Jihad gets right to work, tossing aside the monster's weapons. He stands over the fresh corpse of a goblin, ready to see if he can bring it back. He begins a strange, rhythmic chant as dark purple energy starts to swirl around the clearing. The dead goblin's eyes ignite with a sinister purple glow as it's forced back into a semblance of life. Kaiser watches with genuine surprise. The little guy actually pulled it off. Jihad proudly presents his small squad of 3 undead goblins, though he admits he's hit his limit for now. Kaiser is impressed. Having a small army for grunt work is going to be incredibly useful. The undead thralls let out a series of screeching cries, waiting for their next command. Suddenly, the 3 undead goblins sprint off into the dark forest. Kaiser is left wondering where they're going. He asks his guardian what exactly he told them to do. Jihad gives a cheeky grin, explaining he just ordered them to go pick up all the loot for them. Kaiser is half annoyed and half impressed. The goblin is already delegating his chores. He starts wondering how much longer it'll take to grind his way to the next level. He needs bigger targets. Jihad perks up at the mention of elite mobs, saying he knows exactly where they like to hang out. Kaiser stops in his tracks. He didn't expect the goblin to have that kind of intel. The goblin explains that those elite guys are lazy and just stay gathered in one specific spot all day. A terrifyingly wide grin spreads across Kaiser's face. A whole group of elites just sitting there waiting to be farmed? That's music to his ears. It's time to find these elites and give them a very warm, violent welcome. Kaiser kicks back on a log, wondering how the heck he's gonna grind out those next 2 levels. Jihad Black pipes up, telling his master he knows exactly where a bunch of elite mobs are hiding out. Kaiser looks over, a bit surprised the little guy is actually being useful for once. Apparently, these monsters just sit around in a group all day doing absolutely nothing. Grouped up elite mobs, Kaiser's eyes light up. That's the exact jackpot he was looking for. The 2 of them head deep into the woods to track down the camp. Sure enough, there's a whole pack of them just chilling around a bonfire. They stake out the place from the bushes, with Jihad making sure this is the target his master wanted. Kaiser just grins. This is even better than he expected. Just as he's eyeing them down, a new quest notification pops up for the Trial of the Warriors. The rewards are solid. 100 gold, a nice chunk of EXP, and an intermediate skill draw ticket. Kaiser is all in. He's not leaving until that skill ticket is in his inventory. One of the goblins is just trying to enjoy his lunch when he realizes something's wrong. Kaiser doesn't give them a chance to react and lunges straight into the middle of the camp. He gives them a quick "hey there" with a smirk right before the carnage begins. A goblin roars and swings his sword, but Kaiser is already 2 steps ahead. He easily leaps over the strike, making the monster's best effort look slow. He hits the ground running, already picking out the next target to take down. The monster barely has time to look shocked before a boot comes flying at his head. A massive kick connects right with his jaw. Blood and teeth go flying as the impact sends the goblin reeling backward. The rest of the pack tries to swarm him, but Kaiser is just getting started. He pulls out a dagger, electricity crackling along the blade as he primes a skill. Using vital thrust, he zips through the crowd, leaving a trail of slashes behind him. One guy takes the hit so hard, he's immediately slapped with a bleeding status effect. Kaiser keeps the momentum going, slicing through another pair of monsters as they fall. That's when one of the bigger warriors charges in, screaming his head off. He swings a massive blade down, but Kaiser parries it perfectly with just his dagger. Sparks fly from the impact as he stops the heavy blow dead in its tracks. The monster is stunned that a human could actually match his raw strength. Kaiser follows up with a crushing strike that slams the warrior into the dirt. The goblin hacks up blood, realizing he's completely outmatched. Kaiser decides it's time to stop playing around and reaches for the massive sword on his back. He draws the heavy blade, ready to put an end to the hunt. The warrior lets out one last desperate roar as the shadow of the sword falls over him. Kaiser's eyes glow with a dark intensity as he focuses all his power into the final swing. A massive vertical slash rips through the air, painting the scene in red. The monster is finished before it can even make a sound. Kaiser stands alone in the center of the carnage, his sword planted firmly in the ground. Jihad Black watches from the bushes, completely terrified by the display of power. He realizes right then and there that the guy he's serving is definitely not human. To the little guardian, Kaiser isn't just a master, he's a straight-up devil. Kaiser plants his sword in the ground, finally done with the warm-up mobs. He figures it's about time the real challenge showed up. Right on cue, a massive blue goblin charges in with a roar, wielding a giant axe. The system confirms he's encountered the hidden field boss, Kara. The quest Trial of the Warriors immediately chains into the trial of the great warrior. Kaiser just grins. He's not seeing a boss, he's seeing a walking loot bag. Karuk slams his axe down, shattering the earth where Kaiser was standing just a second ago. But Kaiser is already miles away, having dodged the blow with ease. The two of them face off, the boss readying another massive swing. Jihad Black is panicking in the background, sure that his master is about to get crushed. Karuk's axe begins to glow with an icy aura, threatening to shatter anything it hits. The system announces that Karuk is activating his ruthless strike. The boss roars as he brings the glowing axe down with everything he's got. The air itself seems to scream under the pressure of the attack. Karuk is putting all his weight into this one blow to end the fight. Jihad can barely watch, convinced that this is way too much for Kaiser to handle. Kaiser just stands there, eyes glowing as he prepares his counter. He's got that confident smirk on his face. He knows exactly what he's doing. The blue giant is certain he's got the kill. He lets out one last roar as the axe inches closer to Kaiser's head. Kaiser tightens his grip on the hilt, timing his move to the millisecond. The two weapons collide in a massive explosion of blue sparks. Kaiser deflects the blow perfectly, matching the boss's overwhelming power. Jihad can't believe what he's seeing. His master is actually holding back a boss-level ultimate. Kaiser doesn't just block, he redirects the entire force of the attack. With a successful parry, he sends the boss's momentum flying. The system explains that this skill can neutralize even legendary attacks if the timing is right. It's a technique known to surpass the normal tier of guard skills. In the right hands, it's an overpowered way to shut down any opponent. But because it's so hard to pull off, almost nobody even tries to use it in practice. Kaiser's just glad such a useful skill came out of a low-tier gacha draw. Now that ruthless strike has been parried, Karuk is left wide open. The shockwave from the deflection blows everything back in a blinding light. Now it's Kaiser's turn to go on the offensive. Karuk finally looks terrified as he realizes his best move just failed. Kaiser mockingly asks if his skills are on cooldown now. The boss lets out a desperate cry as Kaiser prepares the finishing blow. Jihad is left trembling, finally realizing that the person he's serving is a straight-up monster. Karuk goes for the kill with his big, ruthless strike move. The ground practically explodes from the impact, but he missed. Kaiser's already in the air, coming down for the finish. The boss looks up and realizes he's in big trouble. Kaiser just grins. He was just waiting for Karuk to burn that skill. One final roar as the pressure settles in. The companion is just watching from a distance, looking completely spooked. One heavy slash through the neck, and the fight is finally over. Karuk hits the dirt, and the system confirms the trial is complete. Now for the good stuff. 200 gold, massive EXP, and a couple of skill draw tickets. 2 intermediate draw tickets. Kaiser's looking like he just won the lottery. He's literally jumping for joy in the middle of the dark forest. His companion is just hiding behind a tree, judging him hard. Seriously, how can a guy look like a total demon one second and an idiot the next? Kaiser's too busy psyching himself up for the draw to care. He doesn't waste any time and hits the use button. The gacha cards start flying everywhere in a flash of light. Pull number 1 is Ascending Dragon Kick, a rare martial arts skill for his legs. Then he pulls Striking. It's a rare buffer skill, which is a bit weird for his class. A buffer skill, he wasn't expecting that one to drop. But wait, it's actually insane. He gets a massive attack buff with 0 downtime. It basically turns his normal blade into a heavy-hitting greatsword. He's trying to hide his excitement, but this is a solo player's dream. A DPS that can buff himself. Everything is falling into place. But he's not done yet. He still has Karuk's leather gear to check out. It's a full set of hero-grade items, including a ring and shoulder pads. Finally, he can ditch that basic goblin set he's been wearing this whole time. No hesitation, he equips the whole thing at once. Not gonna lie, the new fit looks pretty clean. Plus, the set bonuses give him a huge boost to stats and range. He starts posing, asking the companion if the new look suits him. The little guy just stares. To him, his master is getting scarier by the minute. Kaiser notices the look and turns around with a smirk. Even I'm scared of how far I'm gonna go. he says, acting all cool. He's really leaning into that main character energy right now. The companion just thinks he's a total lunatic. Suddenly, a notification pops up saying the companion's loyalty just dropped. Kaiser stops. Wait, were you just insulting me in your head? The little guy panics and starts waving his hands in denial. Kaiser pulls out his sword with a terrifying look. Step out of line and you're dead. That does the trick. Loyalty immediately goes back up as the companion bows down. Kaiser just sighs. It's hard work keeping the help in line. Kaiser decides it's time to move. He's got his new gear and skills, so it's time to put them to work. The little companion trots behind him, asking where his master is heading. The answer is simple. They're going boss hunting. The companion is all for it. Since Kaiser already flattened a great warrior, he figures a few more bosses shouldn't be a problem. But then he realizes just how serious Kaiser is about this next hunt. The system makes it clear. To reach the next city, he has to pass the continent's trial first. And that trial is no joke. He needs to hit level 24 and take down the infamous spider Queen Eliza. They reach the western forest, and the place is covered in giant, sticky cobwebs. There's already a crowd of players there, checking their watches and waiting for the boss to spawn. Everyone's trying to guess where she'll pop up this time, based on where she appeared in the past. Kaiser looks around at the environment, searching for any kind of clue. He walks through the crowd like he owns the place, keeping his head down to avoid attention. He asks his companion if he knows the specific spawn locations for the queen, but the little guy comes up empty. Apparently this boss is from a next generation that he isn't familiar with. Kaiser just sighs. So much for his companion knowing every inch of the forest. The companion looks a bit sheepish about let down his master. Kaiser stares at the massive trees, wondering where the queen is really hiding. He's got a plan to rush in the second she shows her face. Suddenly, his Slayer trait kicks in, and the system reveals exactly where Eliza is hiding. Kaiser's stunned. He wasn't even expecting the trait to trigger in this situation. He notes that he doesn't even have a Slayer title specifically for spiders yet. Then it hits him. The trait doesn't just apply to bosses he's killed before. It works on all asterisk of them. He flashes back to the bosses he's already crushed. This trait is a literal cheat code for finding hidden targets. He brushes off the surprise. Why overthink a good thing? A sinister grin spreads across his face. This means he can monopolize the boss before anyone else even knows it's there. While the other players are standing around confused, Kaiser makes his move. He finds a hidden cave entrance where a haunting voice is crying out a name over and over. He steps inside, and the system confirms he's finally encountered Spider Queen Eliza. He can't believe it. The plan actually worked out perfectly. The companion is absolutely floored. He has no idea how Kaiser found this hidden spot so fast. Kaiser just tells him to relax and enjoy the easy gains. Then they see her in the darkness. This thing is absolutely massive. Eliza isn't just a big bug. She's an elite field boss with deadly poison and spider sensors. The spider lets out a screech, calling out her own name into the cave. Kaiser's expression shifts. It's time to get to work. The queen strikes with her massive legs, but she's way too slow for him. Kaiser triggers his back grab skill, ready to get behind her. He vanishes and reappears right in her blind spot. The spider realizes too late that her enemy has moved behind her. Kaiser charges up his new skill, a massive golden dragon spiraling around him. He lets loose with an ascending dragon kick, getting a nice damage boost from his gear. The impact is brutal. The spider cries out in pain as the hit connects. Kaiser's eyes glow with a fierce, golden light as the energy of his attack surges around him. He isn't just playing a game anymore. He's here to dominate, and he's just getting started. Kaiser opens up the engagement with a clean backstab. The Spider Queen is caught completely off guard by the sudden strike. She lets out a pained shriek as the hit connects. Kaiser doesn't let up, channeling a massive surge of golden energy into his next move. He slams an ascending dragon kick right into the boss's face. The spider cries out her own name as the extra damage from the set bonus kicks in. Kaiser keeps his focus, looking for the next opening in her defense. He lands heavily, the force of his descent cracking the cavern floor. Without a second's rest, he's back on the move, dashing across the dark chamber. Eliza looks stunned, barely able to keep up with his speed. Kaiser unleashes a flurry of rapid-fire slashes that light up the cave. He skids to a halt, already preparing his next skill. He lunges forward again, closing the distance in a heartbeat. Kaiser activates the striking buff, and his attack power spikes. Shrouded in orange energy, he charges back into the fray. Eliza stares back with wide, glowing eyes, as Kaiser triggers another ascending dragon kick. A golden dragon erupts from the strike, dwarfing the massive boss. The blow lands square on her head, sending shockwaves through the room. Eliza shrieks in agony as green fluid sprays from her mandibles. Kaiser follows through, slamming her down with overwhelming force. From the shadows, the companion watches the absolute beatdown, calling Kaiser a straight-up devil. Eliza lies broken on the floor while Kaiser stands over her, cold and indifferent. The Spider Queen keeps sobbing her own name, her eyes welling with tears. Kaiser doesn't care about the name. He's just focused on the kill. He smirks, clenching his fist as he prepares to finish the job. Eliza just keeps crying out, "Lisa," over and over again. The companion watches Kaiser continue the assault, looking more conflicted by the second. Seeing the boss being bullied like this makes the little spirit feel a pang of pity. Kaiser doesn't stop, raining down a barrage of hits on the defenseless spider. But then that name, Eliza, starts to sound incredibly familiar to the spirit. Suddenly it all clicks, and the companion's eyes go wide with shock. Kaiser stops mid-swing, wondering what the hell is going on. The companion rushes out from the shadows, begging Kaiser to hold on and stop. Kaiser is just confused, asking why he's interfering now. The spirit runs straight to the spider, calling out her name with tears in his eyes. Eliza slowly opens her eyes, focusing on the small creature before her. He begs her to recognize him, his voice trembling with emotion. Tears well up in the Spider Queen's eyes as she realizes who it is. The scene shifts back 150 years, to a time when a hooded man was wandering through the forest. He stops in his tracks when he hears a tiny sound coming from a nearby leaf. He finds a tiny red spider sitting there, looking right back at him. He picks her up, fascinated by the rare little creature he stumbled upon. Cassiar asks the tiny spider if she wants to come along with him. She chirps back her name, sounding incredibly happy, Lisa. He thinks the name, Lisa, sounds pretty good as they settle into his cabin. But after some thought, he suggests Eliza instead, thinking her original name is a bit too plain. The little spider isn't having it, chirping her name again and again to protest. He laughs, telling her she's just going to have to get used to being called Eliza. Eventually, he just gives in, though he's still set on his version of the name. One day, Cassiar grabs his cloak and tells her he has to head out on a solo mission. Lisa looks up at him with those big eyes, clearly wanting to follow. He tells her no, explaining that the path ahead is far too dangerous for her to come along. He gives her a final smile and promises he'll be back before she knows it. Lisa watches from the table as he walks out the door, never to be seen again. The days turned into weeks, but her master never returned. The sun and moon traded places over and over, yet the door stayed shut. Sunlight slowly gave way to thick dust and cobwebs as the seasons bled into each other. 1 year became 10, and 10 became 100. Yet Eliza kept waiting. Finally, when even the wooden walls of the cabin grew weary of the wait, the silence was broken. Eliza headed back to the western forest, returning to the very spot where she first met her master. She spent decades there, constantly repeating the name he gave her so she'd never forget him. Back in the present, the companion is absolutely heartbroken, sobbing over the dying Spider Queen. Kaiser looks at him, asking point-blank if he was the one who abandoned her. The little spirit is too overwhelmed with grief to even form a response. He just keeps wailing her name while Kaiser watches with a calm, cold expression. Kaiser presses him, wondering why he stayed hidden for 150 years instead of coming back. The companion looks down, admitting that the truth is currently beyond his power to say. Kaiser stares at him, clearly not satisfied with such a vague answer. The spirit just offers a quiet apology to his new master. Kaiser sighs, looking back at the Spider Queen as he considers his options. He's in a tough spot. It's a graduation quest, and he has to kill her to move forward. The spirit stays close to her, but Eliza seems to be trying to communicate something final. Suddenly, the spirit flinches, his eyes widening in complete shock. Eliza lets out one last, pained cry for her master, her eyes filled with sorrow. The companion screams out no, as if he can't bear the request he just heard. Kaiser asks what's wrong and what the spider is actually saying to him. The companion turns back, his eyes glowing with a haunting green light, and says she wants Kaiser to stab her. Jihad leans in close to the dying Spider Queen, desperate to hear her final words as she rasps out her own name. The goblin panics, screaming back at the massive creature while Kaiser watches the strange exchange from a distance. Kaiser steps forward, asking his companion what on earth is going on with the boss. Jihad turns back, his eyes glowing with a grim intensity as he relays a shocking request. The queen wants to be stabbed. The request catches Kaiser completely off guard, making him wonder if he heard his subordinate correctly. Ignoring the confusion, Jihad keeps his hands on the massive spider, calling out to her as she continues to fail. Green particles drift from the Spider Queen's mouth as her life force begins to rapidly fade away. Kaiser stares at the glowing scene, clearly unsettled by the weirdly emotional bond between a monster and his goblin. System windows pop up, announcing that the boss is suffering from deadly poison and her health has dropped below 10%. Jihad grows even more frantic, his voice cracking as he begs Eliza to hold on for just a moment longer. The goblin hesitates, torn between his orders and the dying creature's strange plea. The massive spider can only murmur her name again, her eyes losing their luster as the end nears. Finally, Jihad snaps and orders Kaiser to hurry up and deliver the final blow already. He shouts that they're running out of time, emphasizing that this is what the boss herself is asking for. Kaiser double-checks, still hesitant about finishing off a monster that's practically begging for death. Jihad doesn't back down, barking at his master to just do it so they can get this over with. Realizing there's no other way, Kaiser slowly draws his blade from its sheath, accepting the grim task. He leaps onto the creature's back and raises his sword high, steeling himself for the strike. The blade plunges deep into the spider's carapace, followed by a flurry of system messages confirming her defeat. Kaiser even gains a permanent stat boost from his predation effect. Kaiser stands over the corpse in silence, waiting for the dust to settle as the boss's massive body goes limp. He looks back at Jihad, asking if he's satisfied, while the goblin just stares at the fallen queen with a hollow expression. Suddenly, something small and purple bursts out from the spider's head, landing right in the goblin's waiting hands. A new notification reveals this tiny spider is the real Eliza, a hidden named boss that was parasitizing the queen. The system asks if Kaiser wants to take her as Jihad's subordinate. Kaiser realizes he's dealing with a parasite-type boss, a rare and difficult enemy variant he's encountered before in other zones. He remembers how these things work. They don't die with their hosts, instead jumping from one vessel to another to survive. A memory of a massive, multi-headed Hydra-like beast flashes through his mind, illustrating just how dangerous these parasites can become. Kaiser finds it hard to believe a boss with that kind of potential would willingly join his team. The screen updates, officially adding Eliza to Jihad's subordinate list. This is a massive win for their small group. Kaiser examines her profile, noting her maxed-out loyalty and unique traits like Sky Cobweb. She's much more than just a pet. He realizes that Jihad is becoming an incredibly valuable asset, far more useful than he initially expected. Kaiser watches Jihad carefully cradle the tiny spider, acknowledging the goblin's uncanny ability to find hidden fields and loyal allies. A wide, slightly creepy grin spreads across Kaiser's face as he starts viewing his companion as a walking lucky charm. Jihad notices the disturbing look on his master's face and immediately breaks out into a cold sweat. The goblin shrinks back, sensing an ominous shift in the atmosphere as Kaiser continues to stare. Tiny Eliza suddenly leaps from Jihad's palms, a trail of silk following her through the air. She lands right on Kaiser's shoulder, surprising him as she makes herself comfortable on his armor. The little spider chirps happily, seemingly trying to communicate something to her new leader. Jihad translates, explaining that she's thanking Kaiser for saving her from her previous, agonizing existence. Eliza continues to chatter in her own language, her large red eyes fixed on Kaiser with pure adoration. Jihad explains that she wants to repay the favor and is asking them to follow her deeper into the cave. Kaiser wonders if there's a reward waiting for them. The tiny spider waves her front legs excitedly, practically vibrating with energy as she prepares to lead the way. Kaiser and Jihad head further into the dark cavern, trusting their new little guide to show them the way to the trial's next secret. Jihad translates for the tiny spider, telling Kaiser that they're almost at their destination. The goblin points forward as they enter a massive, shadowy chamber deep within the cave system. Kaiser's boots hit the ground with a soft thud as he steps into the newly discovered area. A system notification confirms they've found a hidden location, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and something far more predatory. The notification identifies the room as the Spider Queen's egg hatchery. Kaiser looks up, only to find hundreds of massive purple spiders hanging from the ceiling. Each hatchling bears the title of Field Boss, a discovery that should be terrifying, but instead makes Kaiser's eyes widen with opportunity. He realizes that the quest requirement to defeat a field boss didn't just apply to the queen herself. It applies to every single one of these creatures. Kaiser quickly recalls the graduation quest details, seeing a massive loophole that could skyrocket his final score. The quest logic originally intended for Eliza to be the sole target, but the system doesn't differentiate between the queen and her spawn. The field boss hunt quest window updates, reminding him that achievement points are awarded in proportion to how many bosses he can take down. Kaiser calculates that his final reward rank depends entirely on the sheer volume of his performance in this hatchery. Panel number 10, row ID. He looks at the horde of spiders above him, a plan forming to wipe them all out and break the game's ranking system. A dangerous, predatory smile spreads across Kaiser's face as he prepares to start the slaughter. He draws his sword, a crimson aura of murderous intent flaring up around him as he challenges the entire room. Kaiser launches into action, his first strike sending a blinding beam of energy through the center of the hatchery. He becomes a blur of steel and shadow, weaving through the falling spiders and cutting them down before they can even touch the ground. With his eyes glowing red, Kaiser carves through the hatchery like a man possessed, his movements too fast for the monsters to track. A massive explosion of energy clears a huge section of the cave, obliterating dozens of bosses in a single pulse of power. He doesn't stop, his blade trailing arcs of light as he continues to decimate the spider population of the hidden room. Kaiser finishes a complex combo, spinning through the air and leaving a wake of green blood and severed limbs behind him. From the sidelines, Jihad and tiny Eliza watch the absolute destruction, with the goblin looking like he's rethinking every life choice that led him here. Jihad can barely believe his eyes, muttering about how his master is far beyond any normal level of strength. The last of the hatchlings falls, and the cave finally goes quiet as Kaiser stands amidst the wreckage. A system window pops up to congratulate him on completing the first trials field boss hunt. The final tally is absurd: 1 hidden field boss and 34 regular field bosses hunted. Kaiser achieves an unprecedented S rank with a total of 1,471 points, becoming the first player globally to reach this level. His name is recorded at the absolute top of the global rankings, and he acquires the exclusive titles the first S rank and top graduate. Kaiser leans back, soaking in the massive stat increases as a dark red aura pulses around him. He's finally feeling like himself again. He looks down at the tiny Eliza on his shoulder, genuinely impressed by the reward she just led him to. The protagonist thanks the little spider, admitting that this outcome was far beyond anything he had imagined. Jihad steps forward to relay another message, telling Kaiser that Eliza hasn't actually given him her real reward yet. Kaiser looks confused, wondering what could possibly top the ranking points he just farmed from the hatchlings. Jihad points deeper into the hatchery, explaining that the real prize is hidden just a bit further in. Kaiser activates his eyes of truth, and the cavern wall begins to glow with a strange, golden energy. A notification appears as he spots a brilliant red crystal embedded in the rock. You have discovered a piece of fate. Kaiser's eyes glow with curiosity as he stares at the rare item, knowing this is the kind of find that changes everything. Meanwhile, outside the cave, a massive crowd of players has gathered at the entrance, ready to start their own raid. The raid leader psychs up his team, shouting for everyone to follow the plan and take down the Spider Queen together. The crowd erupts into a cheer, their weapons raised as they prepare to storm the dungeon for glory and loot. Panel number 38 row ID. But their excitement is cut short as a global announcement flashes before their eyes. Spider Queen Eliza has been defeated. The players stand in stunned silence, their jaws dropping as they realize someone beat them to the boss they were just about to raid. One of them pulls up the real-time rankings and sees the name Kaiser sitting at the very top, leaving the rest of the world in the dust. Outside the hatchery, the gathered players stare at their system screens in disbelief, reading the announcement that someone has already cleared the field boss. Rumors of a hacker start to spread among the crowd as they desperately try to figure out who this Kaiser could be. The system clearly displays the name Kaiser at the pinnacle of the rankings, cementing his position as the top player. Back inside the hatchery, Kaiser holds the glowing red piece of fate, watching as light pulses rhythmically from the gem's core. He realizes that this single item is the key to a job quest called Succession of Fate, a path that could define his entire future in the game. Jihad is ecstatic, giving 2 thumbs up while tiny Eliza perches on his head. He's thrilled that his master is finally on the verge of becoming a true adventurer. Despite the hype, Kaiser sits on the cold stone floor, appearing deep in thought and surprisingly hesitant about the offer. Jihad notices the hesitation and asks why Kaiser looks so troubled despite the amazing opportunity. The system window displays the potential reward, Heritage of Cassiar, a prize that would grant Kaiser power rivaling the top-tier players. Jihad continues to cheer, convinced that this heritage will finally put Kaiser on equal footing with the world's elite. Kaiser snaps back, pointing at the fine print that warns of a complete job revocation and permanent NPC status if the trial ends in failure. He shows Jihad the caution message, emphasizing that failing this quest means losing everything he has built so far. The weight of the risk hangs heavy on him as he clutches his head, contemplating the possibility of being left with absolutely nothing. A sudden suspicion crosses Kaiser's mind, and he looks at his goblin companion with narrowed eyes, questioning Jihad's true motives. He asks Jihad point-blank what would happen to him if Kaiser were to become unemployed and lose his standing. Jihad takes immediate offense, his face turning red as he screams about the insult to his loyalty, though his loyalty bar sits at a meager 15 out of 100. The goblin continues his dramatic tirade, accusing Kaiser of suspecting him of wanting to desert the moment things go south. Jihad's outburst is so over the top that even tiny Eliza seems to watch the spectacle with wide, surprised eyes. Annoyed by the goblin's dramatics, Kaiser decides to accept the quest just to shut him up, with Jihad's loyalty mockingly increasing by a single point upon receiving a physical strike from his master. The quest window updates, challenging Kaiser to prove he is worthy of inheriting the formidable will of Kaiser. Panel number 19, row ID. Remembering his past victory against the iron-blooded demonic dragon, Kaiser regains his confidence, figuring this trial can't be much worse. He reaches out and taps the confirm button, officially beginning the trial of fate as a brilliant light fills the room. A surge of energy erupts from Kaiser as the system announces the start of the trial, and he prepares for whatever monstrosity is about to appear. Kaiser's thoughts drift back to the moment he first pulled the Kaiser card, a memory of a grand cathedral appearing in his mind. In the flashback, a frantic priest points an accusing finger at a younger Kaiser, horrified that he claims to be an apostle of the battle god. Kaiser confirms his identity with a cocky smirk, unfazed by the holy man's visible terror and outrage. Kaiser asks for a blessing to help save a village, but the priest reacts as if he's been cursed, readying a bowl of holy water to throw. The priest throws the water with a scream of "Shut up!" his face contorted in pure, pious rage at Kaiser's perceived insolence. The holy man orders the lowly apostle to leave the sacred ground, canceling any request Kaiser had brought before the church. Panel number 28, row ID. Kaiser shouts back, furious that he's being kicked out without a reward after all the work he's done for them. In the present, Kaiser walks away from the memory, musing on how religious NPCs always lose their minds at the mere mention of Kaiser's name. He takes a large bite of a sandwich, trying to make sense of the deep-seated hatred the church has for his chosen path. Sitting down to eat, Kaiser reviews the job description one more time, his eyes scanning the blue screen for any hidden clues. A grand illustration of Kaiser, the god of battle, appears. He is the only god who was once an adventurer, a figure feared even by his divine peers. Kaiser realizes that from the church's perspective, this rogue god was likely seen as nothing less than a demonic force. He had expected the trial to be a simple wave of elite monsters, but a sinking feeling tells him that something has gone very wrong. Without warning, a massive spiked mace crashes into the ground right in front of Kaiser, the impact shaking the entire cavern. Kaiser barely dodges the initial strike, his eyes wide as he looks up to see more lethal threats descending from above. A rain of swords, spears, and axes begins to fall from the hatchery's ceiling, turning the room into a lethal death trap. Panel number 38, row ID. Jihad screams in terror as the weapons slam into the earth around him, pointing frantically toward the center of the room. A glowing blue magic circle expands across the ceiling, and the system announces the awakening of Kaiser from his long seal. Kaiser looks up in awe as a pair of colossal, godlike legs begin to emerge from the portal, signaling the start of a 5-minute fight for survival. Kaiser, the god of battle, stands fully revealed, a towering figure with long, dark hair and heavy chains draped across his muscular frame. Kaiser's eyes widen as he realizes he isn't facing a mere elite monster, but a deity-level entity that he must survive for 5 full minutes. He quickly reaches for his weapon, determined not to let the gravity of the situation break his resolve. Gritting his teeth, Kaiser unsheathes his glowing sword, reminding himself that all he needs to do is stay alive until the timer runs out. The challenge seems manageable in theory, and a confident smirk plays on Kaiser's lips as he prepares for the initial assault. Kaiser's single red eye glows with a menacing light, his gaze fixed on the mortal who dares to challenge his will. Suddenly, an immense pressure washes over Kaiser, more powerful than anything he has ever felt before in the game. His body locks up as if phantom blue chains are wrapping around his limbs, pinning him to the spot. The god of battle takes a heavy, deliberate step forward, the sound of his footfall echoing through the hatchery. Jihad screams for his master to move, but Kaiser remains frozen, his sword trembling in his unresponsive hands. Jihad continues to shout in a panic, unable to understand why Kaiser isn't reacting to the immediate danger. Kaiser struggles internally, his brow sweating as he fights against the overwhelming aura radiating from Kaiser. He realizes with a start that even his passive hero trait has failed to activate, leaving him completely vulnerable. The system confirms his fears with a cold notification. His traits have been deactivated, and the pressure he feels isn't a mere status ailment he can cleanse. Kaiser looms over him, a monstrous image of the god's rage appearing behind him as Kaiser stands paralyzed by pure instinctual fear. Jihad grabs tiny Eliza and flees, convinced that Kaiser has finally lost his mind and that their only hope is to run. Kaiser's inner pride flares up, his face contorting with anger at the thought of being terrified by a collection of game data. He lets out a defiant roar, his voice echoing through the chamber as he tries to shatter the mental chains holding him back. Cassiar pauses for a moment, his red eyes reflecting a hint of interest as the mortal begins to resist his divine aura. With a sudden burst of willpower, Kaiser swings his sword, the blade cutting through the air and breaking the paralyzing spell. He flashes a cocky grin at the god, though cold sweat still drips down his face, claiming he's seen far worse. Jihad, watching from a distance with Eliza, points out that Kaiser's legs are shaking far too much for someone who claims not to be scared. Kaiser snaps at the goblin to shut up, annoyed that his cool moment is being ruined by his companion's observations. Turning back to the god of battle, Kaiser acknowledges that he's made good use of the god's skills so far, and now it's time to prove his worth. Kaiser's still going at it, complaining that the failure penalty for the quest is way too forced. He waves his sword around, shouting about how it makes no sense to take everything away just for one failed mission. He knows complaining to a god won't change the reward settings, but he still thinks it's completely unfair. The guy starts fake crying, dramatically asking if the god even knows the struggle he went through to get his items. Jihad just watches from the sidelines, sweating and wondering if his master has finally snapped. Kaiser clenches his fist, continuing the act by lamenting how his gaming life was finally looking up. The goblin finally loses it, screaming at Kaiser to stop talking and actually start fighting. But Kaiser just gives him a smug wink, pointing out that there's only 1 minute left on the trial clock. Jihad's eyes light up as he realizes the whole rant was just a stall tactic, giving a double thumbs up to his master's cunning. He cheers Kaiser on, telling him to keep using that silver tongue so they can survive the final stretch. But Kaiser isn't planning on talking anymore. He suddenly shifts gears and lunges forward. He figures this is the perfect moment to catch the god off guard while his defense is down. The thought of a massive hidden reward for defeating a god starts clouding his judgment. He activates Backstab, glowing blue as he dives from above for a surprise strike. Cassiar doesn't look worried at all, letting out a tiny, amused smirk. In an instant, the god turns and snatches Kaiser right out of the air by his throat. Kaiser's heart sinks as he realizes his trump card didn't even come close to working. Cassiar doesn't waste any time, slamming him into the crater floor with massive force. Jihad can only scream in horror as he watches his master get absolutely crushed. Kaiser is left pinned to the ground, coughing up blood as the air is squeezed right out of him. Cassiar slams Kang Do-yun into the cavern floor, the sheer force of the impact sending shockwaves through the stone. Jihad and the little spider Lisa scream in terror as they watch their master get pinned like a bug. The god of battle grips Kaiser by the throat, blood dripping from the protagonist's mouth as he gasps for air. Cassiar towers over him, the immense pressure of his presence cracking the ground in every direction. Jihad and his tiny companion can only watch, paralyzed by the overwhelming power radiating from the deity. Kaiser gasps for breath, cursing his rotten luck as he stares up at his apparent executioner. Cassiar stares back with a sharp, predatory grin, watching his prey's every struggle. The god raises a hand, his dark power shimmering in waves as the tension reaches a breaking point. Kaiser lets out a final, pained cry, bracing for what he thinks is a fatal blow. But instead of a strike, Cassiar starts weirdly prodding and poking at Kaiser's neck and jaw. The terrifying deity begins aggressively pulling and pinching Kaiser's cheeks like he's playing with a baby. Jihad watches in total confusion as Cassiar continues his tickling spree, leaving Kaiser completely bewildered. Cassiar suddenly sticks his tongue out at the protagonist in a bizarre, mocking gesture. "What are you even doing?" Kaiser asks, pointing at the god who's making silly faces at him. Jihad's expression shifts to shock as he realizes what the gesture actually means in the god's culture. The goblin explains that sticking his tongue out is actually Cassiar's highest sign of respect for a worthy opponent. Cassiar pulls back with a satisfied smirk, looking pleased with his chosen successor. He lets out a soft, amused sound, the tension in the cavern finally beginning to lift. Jihad translates the next command. The god of battle wants to know if Kaiser will inherit his will. Kaiser stands up, startled and overwhelmed by the weight of the question being asked. Suddenly, Cassiar strikes a dramatic, sparkling pose, looking more like a flamboyant idol than a war god. He continues his shimmering, dramatic performance, flexing his muscular frame with absolute confidence. Kaiser looks at Jihad, questioning how the hell posing translates into a deep philosophical question. A system notification pops up, confirming that Kaiser has cleared the Succession of Fate job quest. It's a massive reveal. Kaiser is now on the successor route, a path completely different from every other player. Cassiar gives a simple thumbs up, silently confirming the system's assessment. Jihad shouts that the deity is now ready to present Kaiser with a holy relic. Cassiar reaches into the waistband of his pants, rummaging around for the promised gift. Kaiser's eyes go wide with pure horror as he realizes exactly where the god is digging. The god of battle doesn't care, continuing to search around inside his trousers while Kaiser watches, disgusted. A blinding white light begins to glow from within Cassiar's waistband as he pulls out the item. Kaiser waves his hands in a panic, begging the god to stop before things get even more inappropriate. A long, glowing rod is slowly pulled out from the god's nether regions. Kaiser screams in protest, calling Cassiar a crazy lunatic for keeping a god's relic there. Cassiar holds out the dark rod, looking perfectly content and unfazed by the awkwardness. Kaiser points a trembling finger at the weapon, still processing where it just came from. The system confirms the acquisition of the relic of the god of battle. 1,000 transformations. Kaiser takes the weapon with a look of profound unease, holding the legendary item at arm's length. Cassiar gives a cheerful wave, his part in this strange ritual finally complete. Jihad notices the time is up, signaling their immediate departure from the hidden cavern. A giant magic circle erupts under their feet, surging with bright purple energy. The sudden teleportation sends Kaiser and Jihad screaming as they're launched into the void. Kaiser falls headfirst through the purple portal, a startled yell escaping him as he tumbles into the unknown. Jihad and the tiny spider Lisa cling to him for dear life, both caught in the sudden, violent transition. The portal ejects them into a massive courtyard dominated by a grand, ancient temple with towering columns. Sunlight filters through the clearing, illuminating the weathered stone and silent statues of a long-forgotten era. Kaiser crashes onto the cobblestones with a heavy thud, the purple magic circle of the teleportation spell fading beneath him. He lands in a tangled heap, gasping as the air is momentarily knocked out of his lungs. Jihad grovels on the floor, his green eyes spinning as he fights back a wave of motion sickness from the teleport. Beside him, Lisa the spider rests on the ground, looking equally dazed and disoriented by the rough trip. A shimmering blue system notification appears in the air, confirming their new location. They have officially entered Brion, the city of promise, known as the second city of the main continent. Kaiser pushes himself up, resting a hand on his knee as he looks around at the overgrown ruins. He's relieved to find himself in a familiar city instead of being dumped into some high-level danger zone. A sudden voice echoes through the silent courtyard, making Kaiser snap his head toward the source. His eyes narrow as he instinctively braces himself, wondering who could be waiting for them in this secluded spot. Gamillion Adran, an elderly sage with a flowing white beard and deep blue robes, steps forward from the shadows of the pillars. He walks with a calm, deliberate pace, his gaze fixed intently on the young adventurer. Jihad scrambles back, his expression turning serious as he senses an unusual and powerful energy coming from the old man. He warns Kaiser to stay on guard, sensing that this newcomer is far from ordinary. Kaiser draws his sword in a single, fluid motion, the blade catching the light as he levels it toward the stranger. He isn't taking any chances, especially after the strange and violent encounter he just had with a god. To Kaiser's complete surprise, the old man doesn't attack. Instead, he drops to his knees and bows so low his forehead touches the stone. The sudden show of absolute submission catches both Kaiser and Jihad off guard. Gamillion remains in his deep bow, his voice thick with reverence as he addresses Kaiser. He claims he has been waiting for a successor who carries on the will of the god they just met. He introduces himself by name, revealing that his family has assisted the royal line since the dawn of time. He speaks as if this meeting was a long-awaited prophecy finally being fulfilled. A system message flashes across Kaiser's vision, identifying the old man as a hidden NPC. Encountering Gamillion is clearly a major turning point in the game's secret progression. Jihad's eyes light up with greed and excitement, realizing the old man must be an important figure with legendary rewards. Kaiser, however, is annoyed by the goblin's loud commentary and tells him to shut up. The system triggers a new job quest titled One Step Toward the Truth, tasking Kaiser with listening to the history of humanity. Completing this will finally unlock the mysterious main quest category. Kaiser stands thoughtfully, his hand on his chin as he processes the mention of a main quest. It's a term he hasn't heard in years, and his interest is piqued by the rarity of the situation. He recalls the sheer scale of the game, which has amassed over 1 billion users in the year and a half since the open beta began. Despite the massive player base, some secrets have remained completely untouched. Even legendary players like Barian, the self-proclaimed king of adventure, had given up on finding the main quest. After a year of fruitless searching, Barian had publicly declared that such a quest didn't even exist. Kaiser stares at the sage, his mind racing as he realizes that the impossible quest is unfolding right in front of him. The weight of being the only one to find this path is almost overwhelming. Gamillion looks up, his expression solemn as he notes that Kaiser must have already met Lord Cassiar to have made it this far. He prepares to share a story that he believes every successor is duty-bound to know. Kaiser lowers his sword and listens intently, nodding for the old man to continue. He knows that in a world like this, information is often more valuable than any weapon or piece of armor. Gamillion begins his tale, taking them back over 1,400 years into the past when humanity was vastly different from what it is today. The air seems to ripple as the history of Avtartl begins to unfold. In that ancient era, humans were blessed with outstanding potential and held immense power across the continent. They were a dominant force, even occupying one of the 5 great thrones of the world. But their era of peace and prosperity came to a sudden, violent end when a foreign force invaded. The skies darkened as they descended upon the world, intent on claiming the throne for themselves. These invaders were the beings now known as gods, who currently rule over the people of Avtartl and use them as underlings. Their arrival marked the beginning of humanity's long descent into servitude. Jihad's jaw drops as the truth hits him, his voice cracking as he realizes the beloved gods are actually the masterminds behind everything. The revelation is almost too much for the goblin to handle. Kaiser shoots Jihad a stern look, telling him to keep his mouth shut so they can focus on the sage's words. He doesn't want to miss a single detail of this forbidden history. Gamillion continues, explaining that these gods were actually refugees fleeing from Ragnarok, a great war that had devastated their own divine realm. They sought to take Avtartl as their new home at any cost. A brutal, protracted war followed as humanity fought desperately to protect their homeland from the divine invaders. The conflict was relentless, staining the land with the blood of both men and gods. 1/3 of the world was destroyed in the chaos, and it seemed all was lost until a single human turned the tide. This lone warrior possessed power that could challenge even the heavens. That man was Cassiar, the god of battle, shown in the past as a blood-soaked warrior with glowing red eyes. He stood amidst the ruins of his world, a symbol of humanity's defiance. With Cassiar leading the charge and striking down myth-grade gods, victory for humanity seemed to be within reach. The tides had finally turned, and the invaders were on the verge of defeat. But then the earth itself split open, and a terrifying force known as the Abyss burst through the ground. It was a mass of writhing black tentacles, born from the collective grudges of those fallen on the battlefield. The darkness of the Abyss spared no one, corrupting gods and humans alike and turning them into mindless, glowing-eyed monsters. The entire world was on the brink of being consumed by this hellish corruption. Faced with total destruction, the warring gods and humans were forced to reach a painful, desperate negotiation. They had to find a way to stop the Abyss, even if the price was steep. The compromise was unthinkable. To save the world, they would sacrifice all of humanity. This sacrifice was meant to fuel faith, the very source of the gods' divine power. A massive, glowing deity towers over a group of praying humans, absorbing their energy as they offer themselves up in worship. This established the system of gods ruling over man as their sole source of power. Humanity was stripped of its original potential and reduced to weak slaves, while Cassiar, the only one who could oppose them, was immediately sealed away. The light of human freedom was extinguished. Gamillion reveals the final layer of the plan. The gods even used players, people from another world, to further their goals. They shattered the newcomers' original vessels and turned them into puppet apostles. Kaiser's expression hardens as the pieces of the puzzle fall into place, realizing that every player in the game is being manipulated. He finally understands the true nature of the system he's been fighting against. Jihad, still shaken by the story, tells Kaiser to be quiet so he can focus, his usual greed replaced by a rare moment of solemnity. The two of them stand in the ruins, now burdened with the heaviest secret in the world. Kaiser stands in thought, his hand resting near his chin as he absorbs the weight of the story he just heard. He finally begins to understand the origins of the world's current state and the massive burden he now carries. Jihad is less philosophical, yelling at Kaiser with a frustrated expression, while the small spider Lisa sits calmly on his head. The goblin is clearly annoyed by the mounting complexity of their situation and his master's silence. A flashback reveals a younger version of Kaiser with reddish-brown hair, standing before red system windows that rejected his path as an apostle of Tyr. This failure to choose a god in his past was the first step toward his current, unique destiny. Kaiser reflects on how his journey truly began by slaying the demonic dragon and obtaining the eyes of truth. These pivotal moments inevitably led him to his fated encounter with the god of battle, Cassiar. Kaiser's expression shifts to one of manic excitement, his tongue poking out as he realizes he has bypassed the common path of an apostle. He is at a completely different starting point than any other player in the game. Gamillion Adran gestures broadly, his eyes serious as he speaks of the long wait he and his kind have endured. For nearly 1,000 years, they have been holding out for the arrival of the prophesied successor. The sheer thrill of being the one surges through Kaiser, causing him to glow with a golden aura of pure exhilaration. His eyes are wide with the realization of the massive potential now at his fingertips. In his mind, Kaiser imagines himself as a superstar walking a red carpet, basking in the flash of cameras and the applause of the masses. He relishes the feeling that this entire world and its epic questline were laid out just for him. Back in reality, Kaiser lets out an arrogant laugh, clutching his face as he revels in his own perceived greatness. Beside him, Jihad looks up with beads of sweat on his face, genuinely disturbed by his master's sudden shift. Shimmering blue system notifications confirm that Kaiser has successfully learned the lost history of humanity and Avtartal. This knowledge is officially recorded in his book of adventures as he clears the job quest, a step toward the truth. The game announces that the mainstream is now active, creating a brand new quest category specifically for this legendary path. Kaiser looks forward with a sharp, determined gaze, ready to seize the opportunities ahead. The details of the new mainstream quest, Piece of Fate, appear before him, revealing a multi-part journey of mythic proportions. He has already secured the first of 10 pieces required to unlock the final main event. Gamillion explains the gravity of the task, stating that from this moment forward, Kaiser's primary goal is to seek out and collect the remaining pieces of fate. The old man's hands are open, emphasizing the importance of this mission. Kaiser stares at a glowing red shard of a piece of fate, his mouth slightly open in awe of the item's raw energy. He knows that each of these fragments is a key to breaking the ancient seals. Gamillion recounts the dark moment when Lord Cassiar was bound by glowing chains and instantly sealed away following the negotiations with the gods. It was a state designed to prevent him from ever interfering with the world again. In those final moments, Cassiar performed one last act of defiance, squeezing out his divine power to create the vessel. It was a concentrated essence of his being, meant to be his final gamble for humanity's sake. However, the sheer power of the god's seal caused the vessel to shatter into countless fragments before it could reach its destination. These shards, now known as the pieces of fate, were scattered to the corners of the world. Cassiar's face is shown in close-up, his mouth open in a shout as the seal takes hold. Only when every fragment is reunited and the fate is made whole will the eternal seal finally be broken. Gamillion warns that humanity is currently in a half-baked state and will face grave danger when the promised day arrives. He and Kaiser stand amidst the ruins of Brion, surrounded by the shadows of a crumbling era. Kaiser urgently asks about the meaning of the promised day, his brow furrowed with concern. Gamillion shakes his head, explaining that he is bound by a promise and cannot reveal that information yet. Shifting focus, Kaiser asks where he can find the pieces, eager to continue the quest. The old man looks at him with a steady, unblinking gaze, preparing to set the young successor's next trial. Gamillion mentions that the pieces were once rumored to be near Brion, but he stops himself to mention a specific request from Lord Cassiar. This request must be fulfilled before the search for the fragments can begin. Expecting a grand reward or a legendary item, Kaiser clenches his fist and flashes a wide, greedy grin. He tells the sage to give him the order, already imagining the treasures that await him. Gamillion's expression remains pleasantly calm as he delivers the request. Kaiser must slay exactly 1,000 monsters. The casual way he mentions such a massive number leaves Kaiser stunned. Silence falls over the courtyard as Kaiser and Jihad stand frozen, staring at the old man in total disbelief. The magnitude of the request sinks in, leaving them both wondering if they heard him correctly. A system window pops up to link the new derivative quest, Gamillion's Trial, which carries a high-stakes failure condition. Kaiser has only 60 hours to kill 1,000 monsters, or his job will be revoked entirely. The final blow comes in the form of a system message stating that the quest cannot be declined. Kaiser's jaw drops and his eyes go blank, completely paralyzed by the unfairness of the situation. Rage quickly replaces shock as Kaiser throws a violent tantrum, fuming and shaking his fists at the sky. He rants about Cassiar's apparent desire to take everything away from him through these impossible tasks. Gamillion tries to placate the furious adventurer, pressing his hands together in a prayer-like gesture. He insists that there must be a deep, hidden meaning behind Cassiar's seemingly cruel trial. Kaiser grits his teeth as he remembers Cassiar's dramatic and eccentric behavior from their meeting. To him, the god of battle seems more like a chaotic prankster than a wise, divine benefactor. Kaiser frantically counts on his fingers, his face covered in sweat as he does the math for the quest's time limit. To succeed, he realizes he will have to hunt down and kill a monster roughly every 3 minutes for 3 days straight. Gamillion simply wishes him luck and turns to depart, leaving the courtyard as if the conversation is over. Kaiser panics, shouting for the old man to wait so he can get more information on where to find the monsters. The sage moves surprisingly fast, hurrying away into the overgrown ruins without looking back. Kaiser reaches out a hand in a desperate, futile gesture, feeling completely abandoned with his impossible task. Clenching his hand, Kaiser mutters about how much stronger the monsters in Brion are compared to the ones in Raven. The lack of time to adjust to the new area only adds to his mounting stress. Jihad approaches Kaiser with a curious expression, breaking the silence of the courtyard. Kaiser looks down at his small companion, his frustration still simmering just beneath the surface. The goblin mentions a long, thick, and sturdy item that Cassiar pulled out earlier, using very questionable phrasing. His green eyes are wide and innocent, but the description is incredibly awkward. Kaiser snaps, yelling at Jihad for describing the item so weirdly as he holds up a long, dark rod with red tips. He identifies the weapon as Chinbyon, a gift from the god that he had almost forgotten about. Jihad looks confused by the sudden outburst, while Kaiser takes a moment to properly examine the rod in his hand. He decides it's time to see if this mystical thing is actually as useful as Cassiar claimed. A blue system window displays the item's statistics, revealing that Chinbyon is a mythic-grade weapon. Its physical attack power is staggering for its level, and it has a perfect durability rating. Kaiser's jaw drops as he stares at the screen, his eyes widening in complete shock at the weapon's grade. He can hardly believe his own eyes as the word mythic blinks back at him. He holds Chinbyon aloft, the rod emitting a faint, golden glow and crackling with divine sparks. In all his years of playing, Kaiser has never even heard of an item grade above legendary. Kaiser swallows hard, a visible gulp moving down his throat as the realization of his new weapon's power sinks in. The pressure of the quest is still there, but he now has a mythic advantage in his hands. Kaiser tries to maintain his composure, focusing his attention back on the glowing blue screen to read the rest of the item's description. He knows that a mythic-grade weapon must have extraordinary properties that require careful study. The system reveals a unique ability called weapon predation, which allows the rod to devour other weapons and transform into them. This skill also enables the user to utilize the special options of any weapon it has consumed. Additional notifications explain that the user's current level is too low to unlock the weapon's full authority. Consequently, the attack power of any transformed weapons will be adjusted based on Chinbyon's own grade and the user's level. Jihad stands by with a curious look as Kaiser notes the level restrictions placed on the weapon. The goblin watches as his master processes the fact that the item's legendary power is being scaled down to match his current progress. Kaiser points at the screen, deducing that Chinbyon functions similarly to a growth-type item that will become stronger as he does. He continues to scan the interface, searching for any other hidden features that might give him an edge. He focuses on the weapon predation, entry once more, intrigued by the concept of a weapon that can absorb and mimic others. This versatile ability could potentially make Chinbyon the only weapon he ever needs to carry. The location title, the sordid rocky forest, appears over a dark, mist-covered woodland. It's the perfect place for a dangerous hunt. Aimforthhead, a brown-haired archer in hunter-green gear, takes a steady breath and draws his bow back while hiding in the brush. He's locked onto his target. A magic-tipped arrow whistles through the night air, leaving a glowing blue trail in its wake as it homes in. A massive, green-skinned orc turns its head just in time to see the projectile fly past its ear, grunting in confusion. It wasn't expecting an ambush. Aimforthhead breaks into a cold sweat as the beast locks its gaze directly onto his position. The element of surprise is gone. The monster lets out a thunderous roar and charges headlong through the trees, shaking the ground with every heavy step. It's coming straight for them. A magic explosion slams into the side of the orc's face, erupting in a cloud of fire and smoke that obscures the path. The beast stumbles, steam rising from its charred flesh while it clutches its head in agony. That hit definitely left a mark. The arrogant cleric, a woman with purple pigtails and a mocking sneer, shouts for the monster to just crumble already. She clearly has no patience for this fight. Taking advantage of the opening, the arrogant warrior, A tan, muscular man in light blue plate armor leaps into the air with his sword raised high. He brings his blade down in a heavy arc that carves a deep gash across the orc's chest, sending green blood spraying into the air. The monster roars in rage and retaliates with a massive punch, sending the warrior skidding across the dirt in a cloud of dust. The warrior scrambles back to his feet, gritting his teeth as he calls for the rest of his party to strike at once. He knows they can't afford to hesitate. The entire team converges on the beast, their weapons and magic flaring as they deliver a final, coordinated assault. Blood and energy fill the air. The orc finally collapses into the mud, its body going limp after one last guttural groan. The fight is over. The arrogant warrior wipes his brow, breathing heavily as he admits that hunting these orcs isn't an easy task even for them. The arrogant cleric scoffs, bragging that the win was only possible because their party is exceptionally strong compared to others. Aimforthhead pipes up to agree, claiming that no other team in this forest can match their physical stats and efficiency. They all break into a smug round of laughter, clearly full of themselves after the successful hunt. Their confidence is at an all-time high. The sound of steady footsteps walking through the damp forest cuts through their celebration. They've got company. They spot Kang Do-yun walking toward them with his small familiar, and they immediately begin mocking his mediocre gear and strange companion. Kaiser glances their way, his eyes calm and completely unbothered by their presence or their insults. The arrogant warrior steps into his path with a cocky grin, asking if he's really out here hunting all by himself. He can't believe anyone would be that reckless. The protagonist stares back with a blank expression, showing zero interest in the group's posturing or their attempt at conversation. Kaiser simply confirms that he's a solo player, which only seems to fuel the warrior's amusement. He doesn't see the danger in front of him. The warrior can't help but let out a loud, mocking snicker at the stranger's confidence and simple gear. The entire party erupts in laughter, pointing and jeering at the lone scrub who wandered into a high-level zone without a party. They continue to gossip as he passes, laughing at the simple-looking rod he's carrying and his ugly familiar. They think he's easy prey. A deep growl interrupts their fun as a massive orc appears from the shadows directly behind the protagonist. He's about to be ambushed. Two more of the beasts emerge from the mist, closing in on Kaiser and his familiar from multiple sides. The odds look grim. Kaiser just smiles, remarking that he was hopping for a bit more peace and quiet before he really started the hunt. He's not the least bit worried. The lead orc lunges forward with a feral snarl, its massive arms outstretched for a killing blow. The party watches, expecting a bloodbath. Kaiser's hand tightens around his weapon, and a brilliant, golden light begins to pulse through the dark wood of the rod. It's time to wake it up. A system message flashes as the relic Chinbyon transforms into a glowing bastard's training sword. The power in his hand is unmistakable. In a blinding flash of golden energy and blood, Kaiser executes a series of slashes that cleave through the monsters in an instant. They never stood a chance. The arrogant party members freeze in their tracks, their faces twisted in absolute shock at the display of overwhelming power. Their laughter is long gone. The arrogant warrior's jaw hangs open, his cocky attitude replaced by a face soaked in sweat and pure terror. He can't believe what he's seeing. The warrior stammers in disbelief, wondering what kind of monster he's actually looking at. Kaiser stands calmly in the center of the carnage, his new weapon still pulsing with gold. Kaiser stands over the freshly decapitated corpse of an orc, his golden blade still glowing in the dark forest. In the foreground, a group of players watches the scene in absolute silence, unable to comprehend the sheer speed of the kill. The witnesses are completely paralyzed, sweat beads rolling down their faces as they stare at the carnage. The arrogant warrior can only mutter, asking his group if his eyes are playing tricks on him. Kaiser grips the glowing sword, its energy crackling in the dim light. To the onlookers, it makes no sense. They clearly saw him holding a wooden staff just a few seconds ago. Another massive orc lunges from the shadows, its mouth open in a feral roar. It has no idea it's charging straight into a meat grinder. Kaiser doesn't even flinch, just shifts his gaze toward the new threat. There's a cold, calculated look in his eyes as he prepares his next move. The weapon begins to pulse and distort, the golden light intensifying as the physical form of the blade starts to shift. The air around it hums with pure power. With a flash of light, the longsword shrinks down into a jagged, glowing dagger, perfectly weighted for a quick kill. It's a total transformation in the blink of an eye. Kaiser leaps into the air and brings the blade down with terminal velocity. The force of the impact slams the orc into the ground, ending the fight before the monster can even swing its weapon. The witnesses are practically losing their minds now. They've never seen someone cycle through completely different weapon types this quickly in the middle of a fight. The orc's massive body lies limp on the forest floor, the glowing assassin's dagger buried deep in its chest as blood pools around it. Kaiser waves his hand dismissively, sounding almost bored with his own performance. He admits he didn't expect the monster to go down in a single hit. He yanks the weapon free, sending a spray of dark blood across the grass as the golden energy begins to fade from the blade. Kaiser rests the dagger on his shoulder, looking back at the group of players with a casual smirk. He's fully aware he just put on a show that broke all their expectations. The witness party starts whispering among themselves, trying to figure out if that's some kind of rare weapon option or a unique trait they've never heard of. In a flash of light, the dagger reverts to its original staff form. Kaiser leans it over his shoulder, looking over at the stunned adventurers. He lets out a goofy laugh and scratches the back of his head. He plays it off like he just got a bit too excited and accidentally took out their targets for them. The arrogant warrior tries to save face, forcing a nervous laugh while claiming his group had already hunted plenty of monsters earlier anyway. Kaiser gives them a flat, unimpressed stare. He isn't buying their tough guy act for a single second. The sound of more orcs approaching echoes through the trees, their guttural growls filling the night air. Jihad Black watches from the side, completely unbothered. Kaiser effortlessly spins his staff, the movement so fluid and fast it's almost a blur of dark wood. He drops into a low combat stance, a predatory grin spreading across his face. He figures taking down 100 or so more should be a good warm-up for the night. A few minutes later, the area is a graveyard of green limbs and severed torsos. The orcs didn't stand a chance against the sheer speed of his attacks. Kaiser sighs, looking around the empty clearing with a hint of disappointment. He was hoping for a lot more action than this to test out his new gear. Jihad Black points out the obvious. His master swept through the monsters so fast that anyone with half a brain decided to clear out. The area is completely deserted now. Kaiser puts on his best innocent face, acting like a total weakling in front of the other players. He jokes that a trashy loser like him couldn't possibly do all this alone. Deep in the tree line, a pair of orcs are actually sneaking away, their massive shoulders hunched in sheer fear. They aren't looking for a fight anymore. Even the monsters have realized who the real predator is in these woods. Jihad watches them flee, realizing Kaiser has officially become the forest's biggest nightmare. Kaiser can feel the massive stat boost from his new S-rank title, the successor of Cassiar's will. He looks at his hands, feeling the golden energy of the graduation reward surging through his body. He takes a moment to admire his new loot, including the Raven trial set and the Black Raven spear that pulse with a dark, powerful aura. He stretches his arms over his head, casually mentioning that they should probably take it easy for a bit. Jihad is already itching to get back to the action. Kaiser's smirk turns devious as he looks back at his companion. He has absolutely no intention of being nice or leaving any scraps for the other players. Chinbyon begins to glow with a fierce, burning light as it prepares to take on its next lethal form. The energy crackles around his grip. The weapon extends into the Black Raven spear, and Kaiser lunges forward with a manic laugh. He tells anyone listening they should try graduating with an S-rank if they want to keep up with him. He becomes a whirlwind of destruction, the spear tip carving through orcs like they're made of paper. Each swing is a blur of golden light and dark steel. His laughter rings out across the battlefield as the kill count ticks up past 120. He's moving with an efficiency that's almost terrifying to watch. Kaiser's eyes glow a menacing red as he plunges the spear into another target, telling the scum to just die quietly and stop wasting his time. The notifications keep popping up as he crosses the 200 kill mark, his combat effectiveness reaching a level most players can only dream of. He's already a quarter of the way through his goal of 1,000 kills. At this rate, the entire monster population near Brion will be extinct by morning. One terrified orc tries to make a break for it, but Kaiser is right on its heels, spear raised and eyes locked on the target with a crazed grin. The monster looks back over its shoulder, its eyes wide with the realization that there's nowhere left to hide from the silver-eyed predator. Suddenly, Kaiser skids to a halt, a look of realization hitting his face as a notification appears. Even Jihad is caught off guard by the abrupt stop. A system warning flashes on the screen. He only has 3 minutes left before the server force logs him out of the game. Time up for today. Kaiser casually mentions that his time limit is almost up, leaving the massive orc in front of him completely stunned. The beast stands frozen, unable to believe its hunter is about to just walk away. The orc breathes a sigh of relief, thinking it's safe now that its hunter is about to be forced out of the game. But Kaiser decides he needs one more kill to hit his personal milestone of 250. He chases down the fleeing orc, spear held ready, completely ignoring its cries for mercy. Suddenly, his eye flashes with a brilliant golden light as he activates his Eyes of Truth skill. scanning the environment for anything hidden. He skids to a sudden halt, noticing something unusual off to the side. Jihad Black loses his balance and faceplants into the dirt right behind him from the abrupt stop. Jihad pulls himself up, fuming at how easily his master gets distracted in the middle of a hunt. Kaiser just tells him to stay still for a second while he checks something out. Kaiser points toward a distant rock formation where a faint, pulsing red glow is visible against the dark landscape. To his special vision, it's impossible to miss. The red energy flares up like a beacon on the jagged stone, looking like fresh blood under the pale moonlight. It's a clear sign of something unnatural. Jihad looks toward the spot but can't see anything out of the ordinary. To his eyes, it's just a regular, boring pile of rocks in a dark forest. Kaiser isn't convinced. He figures if only that specific spot is glowing under his special vision, there has to be something critically important hidden there. He moves closer to the rock, where a vertical pillar of red light is erupting from the center, bathing the entire area in an eerie glow. It's been a while since he's seen his skill react this strongly to anything. He reaches out toward the glowing, blood-stained surface to investigate further. He wonders if this could be another piece of fate, just like the one that led him to the god of battle and his new spear. As his fingers touch the surface, they come away covered in a thick, sticky red substance that feels disturbingly like fresh blood. He pulls back in immediate disgust. System notifications begin to scroll past as he discovers a hidden clue. The event is automatically recorded in his adventure log for later review. He picks up a small, glowing red stone. The quest item, Ominous Energy. He jokes that he already gets plenty of ominous vibes just being around Jihad, which earns him an angry shout from the goblin. The item description confirms it's a rare quest item found in the rocky forests of Brion. It carries a sinister presence that even the system finds unusual. The quest directs him to find High Priest Gildetti at the Lyre Grand Temple to uncover the item's true identity and potential. Kaiser smirks, turning the glowing stone over in his hand. Even if it's not a piece of fate, he can tell the reward for this will be worth the trouble. A final notification pings. Only 10 seconds remain before his mandatory logout. He doesn't have much time left to admire his find. Kaiser is caught off guard by the timing as his arm starts to pixelate into data. Jihad is frantic, realizing his master is about to vanish right in front of him. The goblin panics, asking what he's supposed to do if his master just leaves him behind in the middle of a monster-infested forest. He reaches out, but there's nothing to grab. Jihad's voice becomes desperate as the world around him begins to dissolve into a bright blue light of digital static. He starts to mention Eliza just as he disappears. The system confirms the transition. The Guardians are being moved to the Guardian Room for the duration of the player's logout. The dark forest is gone in an instant. The scene shifts to a breathtaking dimension of floating islands and golden sunlight, far away from the dangers of the game world. It's a sanctuary for the pets and familiars. Jihad finds himself standing in the middle of a lush, quiet forest, looking around in a daze as the peaceful atmosphere sinks in. A system box explains that the Guardian Room is a waiting space where Guardians can roam free and without threat until their master returns. It's only Jihad's second time here, and the transition always feels a bit awkward to him. The contrast between this peace and the chaos of the outside world is jarring. He starts walking through the grass, his thoughts immediately drifting to Eliza. He wonders if she'll be okay, considering it's her very first time in this place. Tears start to well up in his eyes as he realizes he hasn't even had a chance to ask her how she's been after all those centuries. He just wants to touch her fluffy fur and relax. He stops dead in his tracks as he spots something familiar through the trees. It's a sight he never expected to see in a place like this. Tucked away in a sunny clearing is a small wooden hut. Jihad is stunned. It looks exactly like the home he used to live in hundreds of years ago. He approaches the door, his hand trembling slightly as he reaches for the handle. The simple sight of the wood brings back a flood of ancient memories. He slowly pushes the door open with a creak and peeks inside the dim interior of the familiar-looking room. Sitting on a wooden table among candles and an hourglass is a tiny, fuzzy purple spider. Jihad can't believe his eyes. The two companions shout each other's names in joy, finally reunited in a place where they can actually rest without worry. Even as a spider, Eliza looks happy. Back in the real world, the sun is setting over a cluster of modern apartment buildings, casting long, warm shadows across the city. Life here moves at a much slower pace. Inside his room, Kang Do-yun stretches his aching muscles after emerging from his gaming capsule. He grumbles to himself about missing his 250-kill goal by just a few monsters. A delicious smell wafts through the apartment, catching his attention and making his stomach growl. He wonders if someone actually made food for once. He follows the scent to the kitchen, where his sister Kang Ji-yoon is calmly eating a bowl of spicy ramen topped with a perfect egg. She's completely focused on her meal. Do-yeon leans against the wall with a playful smile, greeting her as his sweet little sister. She doesn't even bother to look up before telling him to get lost and find his own food. He just stands there for a moment, his charming greeting completely shut down as she goes right back to slurping her noodles. Sibling love at its finest. Kang Do-yeon holds his chopsticks like a pair of daggers, his eyes narrowing as he pretends the steaming pot of ramen in front of him is a high-level monster. He makes rapid-fire stabbing motions at the bowl, claiming his weapon has transformed into shining steel chopsticks as the sound of clashing metal fills his imagination. Ji-yoon doesn't even look up from her food, calling him a goby fish and telling him he's acting out way too much for someone who isn't even good at the game. She points her own chopsticks at him, her expression deadpan as she tells her brother to stop living in a fantasy world and come back to reality. Do-yeon slams his hands on the table and leans in close, indignantly asking if she's ever actually watched him play or heard about the epic main quests he's clearing. Ji-yoon takes another slow, deliberate bite of her noodles, her gaze indifferent as she asks if he's even managed to join a guild yet. Do-yeon crosses his arms and looks away with a stubborn huff, stating that he has no intention of joining a guild for the time being. Ji-yoon lets out a sharp, mocking snort, correctly guessing that not a single scout has even bothered to approach him with an offer yet. Do-yeon's face reddens with frustration, his teeth bared as he insists that it doesn't matter because he's going to be the #1 ranker regardless of who notices him. Ji-yoon waves a hand dismissively, listing all the reasons he'll fail. He's not in a top guild, he's not as handsome as the famous player Burrs, and he has zero presence on YouTube. Incensed by the lack of respect, Do-yeon stands up abruptly and shouts at her to just wait and see until he finally makes it big and proves her wrong. Ji-yoon watches him with a look of pure confusion, wondering where on earth this sudden, unearned surge of confidence is coming from. The moment Ji-yoon turns her attention back to her bowl, Do-yeon's expression shifts from outrage to a mischievous, calculating smirk. In a flash, he leans over and slurps a massive bundle of noodles right out of her pot, leaving his sister to scream in fury as she asks if he actually wants to die today. Later that night, the playful atmosphere of the kitchen is gone, replaced by the cool blue glow of a computer monitor reflecting in Do-yeon's focused eyes as he types rapidly. He mutters to himself about the provocation he suffered from his sister, resolved to show her exactly what kind of legendary player her brother really is. He starts by reviewing the footage he recorded earlier in the game as Kaiser, looking for the most impressive moments of his hunt to highlight for a video. He navigates to a popular video-sharing site and starts searching for God of Savior to see what kind of content and players are currently trending among the community. His breath hitches as he stops scrolling, his eyes wide with genuine shock as a familiar face appears on the search results. Right there on the screen is a video titled, "Who is Kaiser?" featuring his own character in the thumbnail, and it has already racked up over 1 million views in just 10 hours. The scene shifts back to the game world, where a massive, swirling blue portal stands at the BRION entrance. The entire player base of God of Savior is buzzing with rumors. Crowds of players are gathered, their voices rising in a frantic chorus as they debate whether the legendary Kaiser from the old Demrock days has truly made a return. 2 high-level warriors share a tense look near the portal, wondering why no one has managed to catch even a single glimpse of this mysterious newcomer despite his sudden fame. In the fishy rocky forest, rumors of his presence spread like wildfire. A scout reports to his team leader that screenshots of Kaiser hunting nearby were circulating just moments ago. The team leader sprints through the dark woods, sweating as he wonders if Kaiser somehow smelled their presence and bolted before they could secure a meeting. A scout from another group sighs in disappointment, having hoped that making contact with the legend would be their big achievement for the day. Members of the BAKDUSAN Guild and ZNION Guild meet up, their expressions grim as they discuss how Kaiser has ignored every single offer they've sent him so far. The Zenian Guild member scoffs in disbelief, calling Kaiser insane for thinking he can survive the high-level challenges of Brion without the support of a major guild. A charismatic representative from the Hero Guild strokes his chin thoughtfully, a cold smirk on his face as he notes that things won't be quite so easy for a solo player in the upcoming areas. Below the trending news, the comments section is exploding. Fans are praising Kaiser for his legendary solo path and predicting he'll crush all the corrupt guilds to create a new order. Back in his room, Do-yeon stares at the screen as the community rumors continue to spiral out of control, being blown way out of proportion by eager fans. He looks completely baffled by the height of the drama, wondering when he ever said anything about looking down on guilds or starting a revolution against them. He leans back in his gaming chair, a calculating look crossing his face as he realizes the timing of this unintentional fame is actually perfect for his goals. With a quick click of his mouse, he hits the upload button, deciding to feed the frenzy while all eyes are already on him. Once the video is live, he collapses onto his bed, staring at the ceiling with a wide, excited grin as he thinks about the potential views and profit heading his way. He giggles to himself, already imagining how much a Ferrari costs these days, before remembering with a start that he doesn't even have a driver's license yet. Bright morning light floods into the apartment through the balcony window, promising a new day filled with even more possibilities. Do-yeon is already awake, sitting on the edge of his bed with his eyes glued to his smartphone, his hands trembling slightly as he checks his latest notifications. He pulls up his channel, Kaiser TV, and his jaw nearly hits the floor when he sees he has already reached 794,000 subscribers in record time. He scrolls through the glowing comments on his Raven hidden field hunting video, which has racked up 3.4 million views in just a single day. The community is in a total state of shock. He reads messages from fans promising to wait with bated breath for his next upload, and announcements that fan cafes are already opening in his honor. Do-yeon sits in the quiet of his room, the magnitude of his sudden stardom finally sinking in as he wonders if this incredible channel is really his. Kang Do-yeon stares at the screen of his smartphone, a wide and triumphant grin stretching across his face as he revels in the massive numbers his new channel has already pulled in. He bursts out of his bedroom with a boisterous laugh, holding his phone high as he shouts for his sister to come and witness his true majesty. His celebration is violently interrupted as a metal ladle flies through the air, striking him squarely in the forehead with a sharp, resonant thwack. He clutches his head in pain as his mother looms over him, ladle in hand, sharply scolding him for creating such a racket so early in the morning. Wincing from the blow, Do-yeon looks around the house and asks where Ji-yoon is, only for his mother to remind him it's Friday and she's already at school. His mother lets out an exasperated sigh, turning back toward the kitchen while asking if he intends to finally sit down and eat his breakfast. Do-yeon turns and heads back toward his room, a playful skip in his step as he promises to treat her to a high-end beef dinner with his future earnings. The login screen flickers to life as Kang Do-yeon connects to God of Savior, greeted by the usual welcome message. Do-yeon is pumped to get back into the game, already thinking about his next video upload and his inevitable rise to the top. The second he's in, system notifications start flooding his vision, announcing that Jihad Black's loyalty and level have both spiked. It also mentions that his other companion, Eliza, has undergone an awakening. Do-yeon stares at the floating blue boxes, caught off guard by the sudden news of Eliza's awakening. Jihad Black strolls out from a glowing portal, greeting his master with a casual wave. Do-yeon looks the goblin up and down, immediately noticing a new air of arrogance about the little guy. He asks if Jihad has changed, but the goblin just laughs it off, joking that he just got more handsome while resting. Then he notices the small spider perched on Jihad's head. Eliza is now pure white and wearing a brand new gemstone necklace. Jihad explains that Eliza started glowing in the Guardian room and found that necklace, which apparently is her new favorite. The explanation only leaves Do-yeon more confused, wondering how two separate Guardians shared a room and just happened to find loot there. Jihad ignores the skepticism and continues petting Eliza, who seems perfectly happy with her new look. Do-yeon watches them, feeling like the goblin might be a bad influence on the little spider. Suddenly, a voice rings out nearby, recognizing Do-yeon's in-game avatar. A guy in blue armor points him out to his friends, certain it's Kaiser because of that unmistakable, arrogant pose. Do-yeon turns his head, only to see a small group watching him. Within seconds, a whole mob of players rushes in from the shadows, shouting recruitment offers from guilds like Emergency and Bangtang Knights. One player tries to physically grab him, warning the others not to cut in line before Kaiser can escape again. Do-yeon realizes that his viral fame has backfired, drawing in a crowd of persistent flies looking to cash in on his return. He sighs, deciding to play into the drama since he's already being treated like a celebrity. He strikes a pose and tells the crowd to get in line and take a number if they want a photo. The scouts aren't interested in games. One of them orders the group to catch him while his level is still low enough to handle. Do-yeon just shrugs and pulls out a simple-looking rod that starts to pulse with golden light. The system announces the transformation of Chinbyeon into the silver iron shield. Light explodes as a massive, heavy shield forms in his hands, glowing with residual energy. He grips the handle tight, bracing himself as the crowd closes in. Do-yeon swings the massive shield in a wide arc, knocking the aggressive players back while shouting about his portrait rights. Kaiser's weapon, Chinbyon, begins to pulse with a bright golden light as it prepares to change forms. It morphs into the massive silver iron shield, a heavy defensive piece meant to clear a path through the crowd. He grips the handle firmly, his patience with the stalking players finally reaching its breaking point. He snaps at the mob, making it clear he isn't interested in being part of their sketches or screenshots. The surrounding players are caught off guard, having no idea what kind of skill he just activated. Kaiser doesn't give them time to react, slamming the heavy shield into the ground and creating a massive shockwave. Bodies go flying as the impact scatters the small fry who were trying to corner him. With a temporary opening, he calls out to Jihad and Eliza, telling them it's time to make a run for it. The group sprints away, leaving the frustrated mob behind in the misty forest. Kaiser grinds his teeth, realizing that being famous in this game is turning out to be more of a curse than a blessing. Just as they start to gain some ground, a fresh group of players spots him, and the chase begins all over again. Jihad and Eliza cling to his head, looking back at the determined pack of stalkers trailing them. Kaiser decides he needs a more permanent solution and prepares to launch his shield. He reaches out his hand, and the shield begins to stir, as if it possesses a consciousness of its own. Then it zips right back to Kaiser. He keeps running, using the momentary chaos to finally put some real distance between himself and the looters. Kaiser catches the returning shield out of the air, spinning it with effortless precision as they keep moving. He hurls it again, delivering a final warning. Anyone who dares to keep following him will meet a painful end. Finally, they arrive at the city of Brion, where the tall medieval structures promise at least a bit of safety from the wild. Even here, he can't escape the attention. Players on the street whisper and point as the famous ranker walks by. An enthusiastic guild recruiter tries to shove a pamphlet in his face, but Kaiser dismisses him without breaking his stride. He finds the city crowd slightly less annoying than the fire ants in the hunting grounds, but the constant starring is still a pain. In the shadows, a group of suspicious-looking players in masks watches him, waiting for any chance to ambush him for his fame. Jihad trots alongside his master, seemingly oblivious to the dangerous glares coming from the dark corners of the street. Kaiser knows he needs to hit the level cap quickly. Until then, his best bet is to keep a low profile and avoid trouble. But staying quiet is impossible when Jihad starts shouting at the top of his lungs, drawing everyone's attention. The goblin begins introducing himself and Eliza as the guardians of the great Kaiser, turning their arrival into a parade. He's clearly enjoying the spotlight, making sure everyone knows exactly who they are dealing with. Kaiser has seen enough, reaching down to grab the noisy goblin by the back of his collar. He drags Jihad away as the goblin continues to flail, scolding him for drawing even more heat when they are already being hunted. Jihad tries to defend himself, claiming he was just trying to give them the proper introduction they deserve as legends. Kaiser tells the puny goblin to shut up, reminding him that they have quests to finish and no time for his useless grandstanding. They arrive at the Lyre Grand Temple, a massive, ornate building that stands as a symbol of power in the city. Kaiser stops at the entrance, feeling a sudden and heavy sense of intimidation from the holy site. He takes a tentative first step inside, wondering if he can actually just walk in and ask for an audience. Two temple guards immediately step forward to block his path, their spears held firmly as they demand to know his business. Kaiser keeps his cool and tells them he's here to see the high priest, Gildetti. The reaction is hostile. One guard thrusts a spear tip inches from Kaiser's nose with a sharp glare. The guard is livid, insulted that a nobody like Kaiser would dare to use the high priest's name so casually. Jihad snaps back instantly, shouting at the guard for having the nerve to point a weapon at his master. The goblin gets right in the guard's face, completely unfazed by the threat as he continues to bark his defense. Kaiser tells the useless punk to hold on, pulling up a system screen to show the guards proof that he isn't just a random intruder. Kaiser holds up the small green box, telling the guards he's come specifically to show them its contents. One of the guards is taken aback, his hand moving reflexively toward his chest in surprise. The guard leans in, eyes fixed on the mysterious container Kaiser is presenting. Accompanied by Jihad and Eliza, Kaiser follows a pair of robed priests down the temple's stone halls, noting just how fierce the atmosphere is. They arrive at a set of towering wooden doors, where the guide instructs them to enter slowly and respectfully. Kaiser steps through the threshold, though the guide's warning about his behavior in front of the high priest makes him feel like he's already done something wrong. Kaiser carefully peeks through the widening gap of the heavy doors. Inside the massive hall, High Priest Gildetti, an elderly man with a long white beard and an ornate mitre, sits on a grand throne, flanked by two powerful knights. As they approach the throne, Kaiser is struck by the intense pressure in the room and the unapproachable aura of the guards. Zerdik, a muscular knight with spiky blonde hair, looks down at Kaiser with immediate skepticism. Kaiser stammers out a nervous reply, his anxiety spiking when he notices that Zerdik's name tag is a lethal shade of red. Zerdik looms over him, demanding that Kaiser start with a proper introduction now that he's been granted entry. Kaiser apologizes and quickly gives his name, but Zerdik only snaps at him to speak up and stop muttering. A calm, dark-haired knight with a ponytail intervenes, telling Zerdik that he's seen and heard enough. Taxanal, the elegant dark-haired knight, apologizes for his companion's rough attitude, explaining that Zerdik is from a distant region. Kaiser keeps his composure, though he's internally sweating at the realization that Taxanal also carries a red name tag. Kaiser forces a nervous laugh, admitting the sudden confrontation startled him but trying to brush it off. High Priest Gildetti speaks up, acknowledging the difficulty Kaiser must have faced just to reach the temple. Gildetti asks to see the item Kaiser brought along, and Kaiser produces the green box once again. He clicks the box open, revealing a jagged, obsidian-like fragment resting inside. Gildetti reaches out with a white cloth to carefully lift the fragment, his expression becoming grave. The High Priest examines the stone closely, his eyes filled with a solemn weight as he confirms its identity. Gildetti looks up from the stone and asks Kaiser if he has any idea what this object actually is. Kaiser admits his ignorance, having found the mysterious thing just sitting on a rock in the forest. Zerdik explodes in frustration, yelling at Kaiser for being reckless enough to bring such a thing here without knowing its nature. The hot-headed knight leans in, his expression one of pure disbelief and aggression. Taxanal offers another weary apology, nodding that while Zerdik is a good kid, his words and temper are far too rough. Gildetti reassures Zerdik that there is no reason to doubt Kaiser's intentions or his story. Zerdik remains annoyed, grumbling about how the High Priest is treating this neighborhood bro with far too much respect. Gildetti just chuckles at the knight's grumpiness, admitting that perhaps their initial reception was a bit rude. Gildetti notes that while Kaiser may seem like a simple outlander, his top graduate title is reacting to the situation. He addresses Kaiser as an esteemed guest, stating that someone of his caliber is more than qualified to have discovered such an item. Gildetti stares at the black fragment, calling it the most ominous energy in all of Avtartal, the footsteps of fear. Zerdik and Taxanal listen intently, as the High Priest explains that this single shard is a trace of a much greater terror. The High Priest's expression turns menacing as he speaks the name of the entity that left this trace: the Abyss. Kaiser's face hardens, the gravity of the situation finally starting to sink in. Gildetti explains that the Abyss is an ancient malevolence so dangerous that even the omnipotent gods are wary of it. He tells Kaiser that the god lair has tasked them with the duty of erasing every trace of the Abyss to keep the people safe. Kaiser listens, his mind racing as he recalls Gamilion's words and realizes the Abyss has appeared far sooner than expected. He ponders the strange truth of it all, wondering if the rampant Abyss is actually a consequence of the war waged by the gods. Zerdik notices Kaiser's distracted look and points a finger at him, demanding to know what's going on in his head. The hot-headed knight accuses Kaiser of hiding something, but Taxanal quickly tells him to cut it out. Taxanal tries to smooth things over, explaining that Zerdik is just particularly sensitive when it comes to matters regarding the Abyss. Gildetti cuts the small talk short, asking Kaiser for a favor now that the presence of the Abyss has been officially confirmed. Behind the High Priest, a projection of a massive, glowing red orc appears as he explains the mission to identify monsters corrupted by the Abyss. Gildetti explains that while advanced corruption is obvious, early stages show no outward signs, requiring Kaiser to collect blood samples for analysis. A system notification appears in front of Kaiser, asking if he would like to accept the linked quest to search for traces of the Abyss. The reward list for the new quest highlights an increase in Gildetti's affinity and a mid-grade skill draw ticket upon successful completion. Kaiser's eyes light up with greed as he stares at the notification for the mid-grade skill draw ticket. He gives a deep, respectful bow to the High Priest, promising to look into the matter immediately as Gildetti leaves the task in his hands. Kaiser bursts through the temple exit, shouting with glee about how hunting orcs will be a piece of cake compared to his recent trials. He throws his arms wide in excitement, imagining how much stronger he'll become once he powers up with Chinbyon and a new skill. Kaiser spins around in a joyous dance, his energy overflowing as Jihad mimics his master's movements in the background. The two of them skip down the hall toward the exit, completely swept up in the high of a high-reward quest. Kaiser runs toward the heavy exit doors, reaching for the handles with a wide, confident grin on his face. As the doors creak open just a crack, Kaiser spots a massive crowd of players waiting right outside the temple grounds. Kaiser immediately stops and leans back against the door, his face twisting with annoyance at the sight of the paparazzi. Jihad looks up at his master, confused by the sudden change in mood, and asking what's wrong as Kaiser stares at the exit. Kaiser envisions himself being pursued by a relentless mob of players, comparing them to a trail of fire ants following him from the city. He imagines being ganged up on the moment he reaches the forest, worried that he'll run out of playtime just dealing with the crowd. Kaiser leans his head against his hand, sighing as he considers whether he should cover his face before venturing back outside. He shifts his gaze to the side, his mind working quickly to find a solution to the unwanted attention. Kaiser looks down at the goblin, calling his name as a specific plan begins to take shape. He points a finger at Jihad, telling him quite bluntly to take off his robe right there in the hall. Jihad clutches the front of his garment, his face flushing as he asks his master what on earth he's thinking. Kaiser pulls up the description for the Black Goblin Shaman's robe, explaining that he needs its facial recognition disruption mode to move around easily. Jihad looks increasingly flustered and resistant to the idea of handing over his only clothing. Kaiser's shadow looms large as he envisions himself as a dark, menacing figure once he dons the shaman's robe. Jihad tells him to wait, his expression turning sharp as he spots a prime opportunity to turn the tables on his master. A devious, toothy grin spreads across the goblin's face as he starts to adjust his grip on the robe's collar. Jihad holds out a hand and demands that Kaiser ask nicely, specifically telling him to say, "Please give it to me, Lord Jihad." Kaiser snaps back instantly, shouting at the goblin for having completely lost his mind. Jihad shrugs nonchalantly, telling Kaiser he'll just have to deal with the stalking players on his own since he's so capable. The goblin flops onto his back on the stone tiles, laughing as Kaiser fumes over the lack of loyalty from his companion. Kaiser clenches his teeth, his face twisting in agony as he tries to force the humiliating words out. Veins bulge on Kaiser's forehead as he finally manages to stammer out the request for the robe, addressing the goblin as Lord Jihad. Suddenly, Eliza jumps off Jihad's head and onto Kaiser's shoulder, chirping for his attention. Jihad jumps up in a panic, his eyes wide as he asks the spider what she thinks she's doing. Eliza presents a small, glowing necklace to Kaiser, chirping her name happily as she holds it out. Kaiser stares at the jewelry resting in his palm, completely baffled as to why the spider is giving it to him. A system notification confirms that he has acquired Eliza's bracelet, a heroic-grade item with high durability. The bracelet's special options are revealed, granting the wearer faint stealth and removing the mana cost associated with the ability. Kaiser laughs with pure delight, holding the necklace up and wondering why Eliza had something so useful hidden away. Jihad falls to his knees in tears, crying out to Eliza for betraying him while she simply chirps back at the goblin. Kaiser examines the necklace in his palm, noting that while the stealth ability is useful, the restriction against touching anything while using it is quite strict. He looks over at Jihad, realizing that even if he's invisible, walking through a massive crowd with a loud and attention-seeking goblin would defeat the purpose. Kaiser suddenly stops and turns to face Jihad, who flinches at his master's intense and sudden attention. A menacing grin spreads across Kaiser's face as he reminds the goblin of how cocky he was acting just a few moments ago. Jihad sweating bullets, looking completely lost with Eliza perched on his head. He's muttering to himself, trying to figure out his next move now that he's on his own. Outside the temple, a massive crowd has gathered, and they aren't there for a Sunday service. These guys are waiting for Kaiser, and they've got nowhere else to be until they find him. The players are talking amongst themselves, confirming they saw Kaiser enter. They're determined to camp out right there until he shows his face, hopping to snag a piece of his fame. Jihad peeks around the corner, looking pretty bitter about the situation. He's not exactly thrilled about being left behind to deal with the mob while his master is off doing who knows what. The crowd spots him sitting alone by the entrance. They recognize him as Kaiser's guardian and start wondering why he's wandering around without his master. The goblin is fuming, convinced Kaiser abandoned him just because he took a quick bathroom break. He's taking it personally, clearly not realizing he's part of a bigger plan. He stands up and starts walking away, drawing every eye in the courtyard. The players are instantly curious, wondering where he's heading and if he's going to lead them to Kaiser. Jihad starts acting loudly, mentioning a hidden gate Kaiser supposedly found nearby. The mob falls for it hook, line, and sinker, thinking they're about to stumble onto a secret. He leads the whole group of players away from the temple and down the main path. He looks like a tiny parade leader with a huge, greedy following trailing behind him. The players are practically breathing down his neck, desperate for any lead on Kaiser's location. They're so focused on the goblin that they've completely forgotten about the temple entrance. Suddenly, a system notification pops up. Since Kaiser has left the current zone, his guardians are being pulled back to him automatically by the game mechanics. Right in front of the confused players, Jihad and Eliza dissolve into a pillar of blue light. The decoy plan has reached its conclusion. The crowd is left staring at the empty space where the goblin just was. They realize too late that their prize has literally vanished into thin air. System messages confirm Kaiser's arrival in the fishy rock forest. His stealth ability is active, keeping him invisible to any players who might have been nearby. Deep in the misty woods, Jihad materializes right next to Kaiser. The teleportation mechanic worked perfectly, bringing the team back together in a new field. Kaiser gives a satisfied fist pump, thrilled that the escape went off without a hitch. He's finally clear of the annoying crowd. He'd intentionally used Jihad's loud nature to lead the players away, knowing the game would teleport his companions to him once he switched zones. It was a perfect pro-gamer move. Kaiser can't help but laugh at how easily the mob was tricked. Jihad, on the other hand, looks like he's finally done with his master's schemes for the day. When the goblin tries to complain, Kaiser immediately shushes him. He's still in stealth and doesn't want Jihad's big mouth giving them away to anyone lurking in the fog. He spots a few other players nearby and warns Jihad to stay quiet and just keep walking. If the goblin keeps drawing attention, Kaiser threatens to lock him in the guardian room for good. They move deeper into the dark forest, walking right past other players who have no idea Kaiser is standing right there. The mob sees the goblin, but figures he's just a random NPC since Kaiser isn't visible. A warning pops up as the fog gets thicker. The system advises him to keep an eye out for orcs that like to ambush players from the mist in this area. Feeling safe enough from the players, Kaiser deactivates his stealth. The mist swirls around them as they prepare for the actual hunt. He reaches out and gives Eliza a well-deserved pet on the head. The little spider seems to love the attention, letting out a happy squeak. Jihad tries to take some credit for their successful escape, claiming it was all thanks to him. Kaiser admits it worked, but jokes that he really hates giving the goblin any props. Eliza starts chirping her name repeatedly, looking a bit agitated. Kaiser looks down, confused about what his tiny companion is trying to say. Jihad just shrugs it off, guessing she's just sulking about something. He doesn't seem to notice the sudden change in the atmosphere. Suddenly, a massive, muscled green arm bursts through the fog with a deafening roar. The ambush the system warned about is happening right now. Kaiser and Jihad are caught off guard, their conversation cut short by the massive threat emerging from the mist. They weren't expecting it to strike so soon. Before Kaiser can even react, Eliza launches herself into the air toward the monster. She's not letting anything get to her master. A giant orc looms over them, but the tiny white spider is already diving headfirst into the fight. The hunt for the abyss has officially begun.